Okay, good evening. This is the March 16th meeting of the Litchfield School Board. This is the organizational meeting, so I will preside over the beginning until a new chair has been elected. So at this time, I'll call the meeting to order and ask everybody to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is to review and revision of agenda. There were a few links that were livened up for board members, but there aren't any other new items, and everything that was livened up is stuff that's just for presentation purposes tonight. And so at this time, I just want to talk for a few seconds about the school board reorganization. So first, I want to welcome our newly elected member, Andrew Cutter, was elected by the voters. So Andrew's first meeting is tonight. So welcome.
Thank you very much.
And then Tina Harrison has been reelected to the Litchfield School Board. And so Tina served for how many years?
That's 6.
6 years. And so we'll now have 3 more years ahead of her. So Tina, welcome back to the board. And so the first order of business is selecting a chair, and it's up to the board to do that. So I just sort of oversee that process. Traditionally, what we have done is open the floor to nominations. A board member can make a nomination. The person can accept that. If there are additional nominations, I think we would move to a phase where we would have people make comments as to why they would like to be board chair. And then we would have to have a vote if there were multiple nominations. We have to have a vote if there's 1, 2, just to make sure the person's elected. But I think in moving to a vote, we would just want to have a show of hands. All those in favor of person A, all those in favor of person B, we count hands and we have a chair.
Since Liz is remote, do we need to have a voice?
Yeah, it needs to be a roll call, please.
Okay.
And Liz is, Liz, I should start because I think I need to ask you why you're remote, and if you can just explain who else is in the room with you so that we know that for the sake of the meeting. We can't hear you though.
Oops, I muted myself. I'm in Austin, Texas, and nobody is in the room with me, but it has very high ceilings, so we will be echoing a bit, I believe.
Perfect. Thank you, Liz.
Superintendent Jetty, just by
Yes.
way of practice, because we do have a remote participant tonight, all votes need to be roll call votes.
Perfect. Okay. So we will take roll calls for those. All right. So any questions or concerns about the procedure I just outlined?
Sure.
If not, I will ask for nominations for the chair of the Litchfield School Board for the next year.
I would like to nominate Miss Ames for chair.
Nomination for Mr. Cutter for Ms. Ames.
You're welcome.
Hi. So what do I
It needs
say?
to be a second.
Okay.
Oh, we have a second.
So a second from Member
TV.
McDonald on TV.
Can I decline
You can.
respectfully?
You can.
It's absolutely within your purview.
Okay. Respectfully, having been on the board for a year, while I appreciate it, I feel like I still have more to learn and I'm not quite ready for that responsibility yet. But thank you. And I appreciate it. And
I'll withdraw my motion.
thank you.
I assume the second is withdrawn.
Actually, you don't have to withdraw because she declined.
Declined.
So it's
Fair
fine.
enough.
Yes.
Perfect. So further nominations.
I would like to nominate Tina Harrison for chair.
So a nomination from Member Hirschberger for Tina Harrison. Is there a second?
Second.
A second from Ms. Ames. Tina, do you accept the
Do you
nomination?
accept the nomination?
Are there any further nominations for board chair?
I'd like to nominate Liz McDonald.
A nomination from Mr. Cutter for Liz McDonald. Is there a second to that nomination?
I'll second for conversation. Can I second both?
You may second.
Okay.
So we have 2 nominations that have been made. Liz, do you accept the nomination?
I accept the nomination.
Okay, so we have 2 nominees for board chair.
And we'll start with the second, right? And if that fails, then we'll go back to the first. Is that the practice?
Nope, we will do a show of hands between the 2 nominees, and all in favor of one person will raise their hand, then the
So
other.
there's no discussion?
Oh, no, we're going to do discussion.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry.
All
Yeah.
right. Got it.
Right. So why don't we start with the order that they were nominated? So Tina, do you want to speak first as to
Sure.
continuing on as board chair?
I appreciate and gracious for the nomination, and I feel that after a year of being the chair, I've learned a lot of lessons about what to do and what not to do, and I would really appreciate the opportunity to move forward with the goals that we outlined last year together as a board, and I would be honored to work hard for another year as the chair of the board.
Perfect. Liz, do you want to make comments about your nomination?
I would like to see changes to the school board and the way certain things have been done. I'd like to listen to our taxpayers more. I would also like to see different things happening in the board, further communication with the town, and maybe it's through Facebook, and just to start over and regain the trust of the public.
Perfect. Are there any other comments or discussion?
Yeah, I'd echo Liz's statements there. You know, a lot of respect for Ms. Harrison, obviously, right? We've worked together for many years now at this point. The town, in my view, wants a different direction and a change, which I believe is why I was elected into this role, which I graciously accept and thank the public for doing. But that being said, I view that the town is asking for a change in a completely different setup to this board composition, which is why I'm nominating Liz at this point for chair.
Anyone else?
Respectfully, I would say she's only been chair for 1 year. That's not much time to make a change. She was a change from years past, from a previous chair that had been there for many years. So that's what I think of that. There's a lot of change that's already happening. We've put goals on the, we've written out goals, put them by building. It takes time once you implement new things to get them going. So that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point, right? I think one of the things as a former budget committee member at this point, right, and the experiences that we've had on the budget committee, especially over the past year, was some distrust and some shadiness. That was the perception of the board that I'd like to see corrected on this committee, right? And that does take change, continued change in respect.
I would also like to say that the last year as a chair has been very challenging for somebody brand new to come in and have dealt with those challenges. And, I've always tried to maintain my sense of collaboration on the board. As far as transparency and communication, that has been my goal since day one. And I am open to ideas, and I'm hoping that we can work together as a board to make those changes. And I'm willing to do that as the board chair, because I see that there is room for improvement as well.
Is there any other discussion, or are you ready to vote?
You talk about shadiness, and I'm not sure what you're referring to, but again, I would just compare to previous, I guess, leadership that was on the board, and that I feel like I am more informed when Tina was leading last year and got more information, and there was more communication. And
I disagree.
honestly, there was just more positivity about like the direction that we were heading than I had seen previously. So again, that's why I nominate Tina.
Any other discussion?
Did Liz have anything she wanted to add to that?
Liz, did you want to add anything?
No, all I can hear is Michelle on the keyboard.
Yeah, it's because the audio is through your computer. She can't hear it.
Can you hear it too?
Um,
No, there's nothing I want to change. I mean, nothing I want to add. I'm sorry, Heidi.
Oh, no, I was just checking because I thought I heard you say you disagreed. So I just want to make sure you had an opportunity to speak
I
up.
didn't see a difference between the previous chair and this chair as far as communication, and in fact, I felt even more out of the loop than I did with the other board chair. I've made my opinion known. It is what it is. No matter what happens, I will be a member of this board. And work for the taxpayers who elected me. No, I'm done.
Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to do it by a show of hands. I'm going to call them in the order they were nominated. So all in favor of electing Tina Harrison as the board chair, raise your hand.
Well, again, this has to be a roll call vote, sir.
I understand, but I need you to raise your hands. And
Aye.
so state your name so that we know you're voting.
Tara Hirschberger for Tina.
Heidi Ames for Tina.
Tina Harrison for Tina.
Okay, so that is 3 votes for Tina. All in favor of Liz McDonald, raise your hand and state your name.
Aye, Andrew Cutter.
Liz?
I, Elizabeth McDonald.
Okay, so Tina Harrison has been elected as the board chair by a vote of 3-2.
With respect, that's really shady and continues the trend of this board, right? An election of an official of a chair, you should abstain from voting for yourself. That's how this historically works in this town. You should not be voting for yourself in the affirmative.
Well, then I'll declare it a 2-1 vote because neither person can vote for themselves, and Tina's elected by a 2-1 vote. Either way you slice it, Tina has the majority of votes on the board,
Would have been a
correct?
2-2.
Hold it. I thought in the past, like for at least for the school board, I thought that the chairs have voted for themselves.
Doesn't make it right. And I can't speak to past. I don't know
Yeah,
that.
no, that was
But
that's been the
But Andrew, I can
past
speak to
precedent.
tonight's process. If the rule is that you're,
It's legal. There's no question about it.
but the rule is you can't vote for yourself, so Liz can't vote for herself. Tina can't vote for herself.
True.
It's
I
a
see your
2-1
point.
vote,
I
correct?
see your
It's
point.
not a tie.
I see your point.
Okay, so I am declaring as the superintendent and handing the gavel over to Tina that Tina is the new board chair. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You can come right up to the big seat.
Thank you. Do I need to?
You don't need to, but you're
Right.
welcome to.
I'm all plugged in and set up over here, so I think I'll stay over here. Thank you. I am, like I said, looking forward to another year of collaboration and working together on the board. And I can't speak to any perceptions of shadiness or lack of transparency or ulterior motives. All I can say is that I'm looking forward to working with each and every member. And I hope that any further concerns by any of the board members come to me so that we can work this out. Thank you. With that, I'll take nominations for vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Elizabeth McDonald for vice chair.
Stole my thunder. I was going to do the
Second.
same.
I
Second
know,
that.
but you're busy governing.
I
now.
know. Yeah. So I have a second. I have 2 seconds actually, but I'll take
Go ahead,
Andrew
take
as the second. Liz, do you accept the nomination?
Sure.
Okay, great. Any further discussion? All in favor of Liz McDonald as vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Raise your hand, and I'll go around with roll call. Heidi,
Aye.
Tara,
Aye.
Andrew.
Aye.
I'm an aye. Liz, you abstain?
I don't know at this point. Yes. No.
Either way,
Doesn't
you
matter.
win.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Liz. You'll be our
You're
vice
welcome.
chair.
Whatever I need to do, I'll do it. Put me down as doing what I needed to do.
Great, great. Thank you so much.
That means she signs up for budget committee or?
I think she just volunteered for all of the
Right.
committees.
That's what I
Fantastic. All right, that brings us to the signing of the code of ethics and the code of conduct.
So 2 documents are being passed down. It's the code of ethics. It's linked and it's printed off, and there's a signature page on the second page of it with an addendum that follows, and then the code of conduct also has signature, and I guess the board chair should sign it first. We'll hold these documents in the office for you. But now would be, I guess, the time if there were questions to certainly bring those up.
You all have a copy of this in the meeting agenda. Were there any questions?
No questions?
Oh, no questions.
Thanks, Corey. This is 2 pages. Okay. There it is.
Mike, what office will they be in? The SAU office?
We'll have those. Yeah, Michelle will keep them after the meeting, so you can swing by
Got
there
it.
for 'em, Liz.
So sometime next week?
Yep.
Got it.
And there's a space for vice chair on there. So
Yeah, I left it blank.
great.
Numbers to fill in.
Okay, while we're signing that and passing that around, we have next on our agenda the NHSBA School Board Training Review. Did you have any comments about that, Mike?
So basically, we're providing this as a resource for everyone. So the link actually goes to the document that existing board members got last year at the retreat. So when Will Phillips and Barry Christina came and met with board members, those are the documents. I want the board to understand, I shared those with Andrew in advance and asked him to read those. We met, Michelle had prepared a very nice packet of board orientation materials, and he did have a copy of those also. So just so the board's aware that you all have seen the same thing. I did not do the training that Barrett or Will did. However, the packet is the same packet. And so if there are questions or comments on that, I'm happy to help. Later on, we're going to talk about possible retreat topics. And so, but I just want everyone to be aware of that.
Yeah, and also, Mr. Carter, there are webinars and trainings through NHSBA, the New Hampshire
Yes.
School Board Association. So I just want to make sure you're on that mailing list so that you're getting those
I
notifications.
actually put them on the database
Great.
yesterday, so you should be able to go in and
Fantastic.
do that. I
Yeah.
can share the link with you for the webinars.
The new board member training is very good. That's always a good kind of reminder. And I think there's one about holding effective meetings. There are some about right to know law and communications. So
I actually included that on the agenda tonight.
Oh,
just so you.
I
you
didn't
could have
skip
it.
down that far. All right, thank you. All right, that brings us to committee assignments.
That was a very professional packet yesterday. Thank you for that.
Thank you, you're welcome.
So we have a chart here with all of our various school board committees and who's been serving on those committees this year. And generally, we just kind of go around and decide who wants to do each one. So I guess
Would you like to do budget committee again this year? I'll get it going.
I would not like to do budget committee this year.
Let me ask the question to other members. Would you like to do budget committee this year?
No, I would not.
Ms. Ames?
I think this is right in your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
I know it is, right? Clearly. But I think that should I take this on, it would be very wise of this board to have a deputy as a part of this, right? Because I know for a fact going into meetings, especially in the
deputy.
latter part of the year,
Yeah.
I will not be able to make every meeting. It won't
Oh,
happen.
okay. Yeah.
It won't
I
happen.
could definitely tag team
So Andrew and Tara.
if nobody else wants to. Do
No,
it.
it's all you. Enjoy.
Cool.
That would be great.
We got this.
Thank you.
All right.
Andrew, my husband thanks you too.
And my
Will
wife
on
does not
Thursday
thank
night
me.
He
anyway.
will on Thursday nights. Yeah.
I promised Andrew he wouldn't be, because he was the new member, he wouldn't end up with a bunch of committees.
Oh.
So, egg on my face.
I think the way I'm looking at this, just for public transparency, is I think one of the ways in order to help bridge the communication between the budget committee, this makes a lot of sense. Is it a massive time commitment?
Mhm.
Yes. But is it in the best interest of the town? I believe it is.
And it's definitely your wheelhouse. And you know that we all have different strengths and things that we bring to the table, and that is definitely yours. So enjoy. I mean, thank you. I didn't mean that at all sarcastic. All right, next we have facilities improvement. I would actually really like to continue on that. I've been serving on that just for this past year. Mr. Burke was also serving on it this past year, and I'd like to continue with the momentum on the GMS project and the updates on the LMS project that we've been working on.
Can we have two for that, as we have in past
We
years?
should have to.
Okay. I would like to do it, but I am happy to let somebody else do it if somebody else wants it.
I'm pretty tapped, so go for it.
Yeah.
I'd
Are you-
like to
are you-
also do it.
Is
Are you
Liz
good with the
interested?
earlier times or do?
Yeah, like 3:30.
Yeah.
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 What about Liz? Is she interested?
Oh, did she want
Yeah.
budget committee?
Liz, sorry,
No.
you don't want budget committee. You don't want facilities improvement. You're okay with that? Okay.
Okay.
I'll try to leave you on the screen, but I'm also trying to get the middle school
I forget
presentation.
about her because she's behind us. All right. That brings us to emergency management.
I kind of have interest in that.
Yeah?
So if nobody else does, I would like to do that.
Are you okay with that meeting time?
Yes, I am.
Great.
Yep.
All right. Grading and reporting.
I'm going to nominate Liz for that. Oh, she gone? No, she.
No, sorry.
She's here, right?
Not that I'd have to nominate, but I know she has strong feelings on it. And this will be an opportunity for potentially,
Building bridges,
well, change.
consistency.
Is there an option for two people to do that one? Only because I'd like to, as somebody who doesn't have an education background, who's not in that particular area, I feel like this is a weakness for me. And so one of the best ways I can learn is by attending these meetings. So I don't want to step on Liz's toes, but I
No,
just
absolutely not. You'd be welcome because
told you.
sometimes I do have
Same
after school activities.
To have an alternate, yeah.
Can you
Okay.
have Liz repeat that? I didn't hear that.
So-
What'd she say?
Liz said,
Can we, yes.
she said yes.
Okay.
And to answer the question,
That was a
I
long-
think anytime two members are on, you don't have a majority of the
Yeah.
board. So that's perfectly fine.
okay.
And, whether people serve in a deputy role is discussed over here, or whether it's everybody's there all the time. I mean, on facilities, Tina and Brian were there a lot of the times at the same time, but there was a lot going on.
Yeah. Great. Okay, so that brings us to joint loss management.
I'll do that.
Great. Thank you, Liz. Unless anybody else.
Is Corey there?
Corey is here.
Corey is here.
Yeah, we're getting that ramp back up.
Okay, thanks.
I'll send you the invitation.
Okay.
Great. Perk. Anybody want to do perk? I'm happy to do it again. I did it. I think my first 3 years. And
I did it this year. That's fine. You can have it.
All right. Thanks, Liz. Heidi.
No, I'm laughing at school start time.
task
I'm ready to have that.
Yeah.
I didn't have a meeting yet, but
No.
let's do it when we have time.
School start time. I'm taking it.
Oh, so who's doing perk? Sorry.
Yes.
I'll do perk.
Oh, Tina. Okay.
Yeah. All right. And your school start time?
I'd love to. Yeah.
Okay. Or did Liz want school
Yeah,
start
Liz
time?
can do it too. I'm happy to.
Well, now that we're not changing clocks again, I don't know what we're going to do.
All right.
Oh, I don't want to do school starts time.
Okay.
I'm on it.
All you, Heidi.
Okay.
We have wellness committee.
I'm still interested in that.
Great.
It's just getting off the ground, so.
Sounds good.
This is Tara.
And then the town CIP, capital improvement planning committee.
This is
When
one
did
that
they meet?
they at this point, the capital improvement committee is scheduled to meet quarterly. The next scheduled meeting is actually the 6th. It's
Of
coming
April?
up soon. The first Monday of April is when it's scheduled. I believe that's April 6th.
4th.
4th? Okay, April 4th.
If that's a 22 calendar, it is. Okay.
Yes, it is. April 4th. They have that meeting is scheduled. That committee has not met in the better part of 9 months. It's been a long time for various reasons. This is a committee, just for this board's awareness, that I was part of on the budget committee as a non-voting member. I'm the one who did all the presentations and put all together the materials and put it, just presented it to the town for approval and the planning board for approval.
Okay. Are you interested in doing that?
If somebody else is interested, that's fine. Otherwise, the ask for this one is an 1 hour meeting a quarter,
A quarter.
right? It's not a big,
Yeah.
it's not a big ask. So I'm happy to take it as well.
If you're okay with that, that's
Liz, do you want it?
No, I could be your fill-in if you need a fill-in.
Okay.
Perfect. All right. So it's Andrew. Sorry, I'm writing this all down. And Liz.
In addition to that, just for the board's awareness, while they're not formal committee assignments, it's, I think, relevant to this part of the conversation. I was invited to be just a voice for the board, and this, not just me, but it could be anybody that this board decides, to speak on a regular basis, whatever that looks like, to the Republican committee in town. I have not received an invitation from the Democratic committee in town, but that would be welcomed too. And in addition to that, there was an invitation to regularly speak to the veterans group in town, as well as being a liaison into the 55 plus communities. And as we think about the ticket items over the next year that this board is going to talk about, all of those are critically important to have informal conversations with. I know the veterans group is scheduled to meet on Saturday, April 9th. And they've invited participation from the school at that session.
Great.
So I don't know if you want to do assignments for those organizations or how you'd like to handle it.
I'm not sure. Any thoughts?
Well, we talked about community outreach at the last meeting, having monthly meetings
Right.
and
Setting a plan in motion.
Forums and whatnot.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe we put this on the agenda.
Yeah.
A later agenda,
Yeah.
and then figure out the plan for the year, or even it could be part of, I mean, so the one of them's in April, right?
The veterans meeting is on April 9th.
Mhm.
And again, there was an invitation to participate in that meeting.
What time is that?
It's at 8 a.m., Saturday, 8 a.m.
Do you
Right.
have the invitation
I don't. It was just email invitation from
to the board or to you?
to me.
Okay. I mean, we did talk about community outreach and planning more things. I don't know if that's something we should discuss at a retreat, if that's in the works, or how do we incorporate that in? I do want to be cognizant and aware that, these are groups that have reached out to you. And there are other groups in town. I would like to offer them the same opportunity
Absolutely.
if they'd like to. There are just a lot of different groups and organizations in town that I think if we're going to make an effort to reach out to the whole community, we should do so in a fair manner. So I appreciate the invitation, and
One of the things I think that we've talked about, haven't we don't have it set yet, but I know we've talked about putting together a communications plan.
yeah.
This is the kind of thing that would fit perfectly within that.
Mhm.
And that, I mean, it will take some effort to put that together, but having that kind of strategy would really help guide us, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. So what are your thoughts? Do you feel like that's a conversation, part of it, this is part of a bigger conversation that we should have? Putting together that schedule and that.
I don't know that it's a schedule. I think,
Yeah.
in terms of these 55 plus community outreaches, it's just, when can we get everyone together in a community room
Mhm.
and have a conversation about what's going on in the school,
Absolutely.
right? Those conversations will start to build rapport
Right.
and trust, and they need to happen.
Mhm.
Right. And it's the
Absolutely.
same thing with these other committees and boards.
We used to do that years ago. We used to hold a breakfast.
Yeah. Yeah.
With the adult community. We'd invite.
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to do that. We had a whole community engagement plan. I will remind the board
Mhm.
that per board policy and anytime someone is going to speak for the board
Mhm.
or on behalf of the board has to vote on that.
Why? That was the intention of bringing it up here.
Right. Absolutely.
No, I think it's a great idea, and I definitely think that we should do that. I don't know about assigning one person to each group. I don't know if that's the most effective way.
I would be more than happy to go with Andrew, especially to the Republican committees and any of these things, because that's a group I would love to get involved in our schools, any way, shape, or form. Even lunch ladies, stuff to do, come in and visit. We're not trying to pull the wool over your face. We need to be transparent.
Right. I feel that way about all members of our community. I think that we need to reach out and have more community involvement, and that's what we're all working towards. I agree with you.
I think the strategy that I'm thinking about in my head as we're having these conversations is the difference between holding a forum when we're asking people to quote unquote come onto our turf versus going to their meetings and participating in meetings they already have scheduled that shows
What's
a
the
little bit.
difference?
Well, I think it shows more outreach, and I think you're likely to get higher attendance. I think I'm just thinking about the differences between the two and having that strategic conversation about making sure that we just offer it to all of the different groups. But I think we need to get out there. I think we can't ask people to necessarily come to our meetings. I think we're going to have to go to theirs.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure the way we decide, if the Boy Scouts ask us to come, their organization in town, if the Girl Scouts ask us, at some point there are a lot of organizations, and I'm not sure there's necessarily enough time across the board, but I think I want to have that conversation more as part of the strategic communication and marketing strategy that we've been talking about, that Tara was referring
And that's
to.
fine if that's part of it. I think that needs to happen soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. The
Absolutely.
time is now for action on
Yeah.
this.
Absolutely.
Andrew, I commend you getting that door opened and having them reach out to you as a person running for school board. 55 community, how much would they love coming to the community room? I don't care if 2 people go. I just think I agree with we need to go on their turf. I can't see anyone in the 55 community coming to CHS at 7:00 at night because their peak time is when we're all at work.
Right.
And
But we
it
can
could-
talk
and it
about
could be
it
like the
sooner.
veterans
I think
meeting.
it's
It could
great.
be a Saturday morning at 8 a.m.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Bring in a box of Joe and here we go.
Donuts.
So I guess I think we're getting into when we're going to be talking about this retreat, but I think that's the conversation in terms of marketing and a communication strategy that will play into our other major goals for the year in terms of GMS and LMS. So I kind of want to have that conversation as part of that.
And I guess the other just thought I would have is you do want to be open and transparent. So, when you get an invitation, what would be who
Right.
does the invitation go to? What's the response? Does one person go, or do people always travel in twos? That kind of thing, just so that, because again, you can get into he said commentary afterwards. So if you have 2 board members there,
I think it should always be 2.
Yeah.
And so
I agree.
I think in the retreat, that's a perfect place to maybe develop the plan,
Set up a
talk
schedule.
about what, for lack of a better term, the ground rules are, what the expectations for success are, so that you can have those going forward. And make it clear that any group watching tonight, if they want to send the invite in, they're able to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank
All
you.
right. So we'll table it for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
We do have a meeting before the 9th, so it's not this time, right? So we can,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. I'll read the summary of non-public actions from March 7th, 2022. Mr. Burke made a motion to approve the non-public minutes from February 16th, 2022. Mrs. McDonald seconded. The motion carried 5-0. Mrs. Harrison made a motion to accept the resignation of Kurt Verkaitis, CHS science teacher, and to release him from his contract. Mr. Burke seconded. The motion carried 5-0. Mrs. Harrison made a motion to accept the nomination of Canal Blakesley as CHS science teacher at a salary of $67,920 prorated for the 2021-22 school year. Mr. Burke seconded. The motion carried 5-0. That brings us to presentations and recognitions from the LMS Student Council.
Cranston, do you want to introduce who you
Sure.
have brought forward tonight?
I brought some fantastic students who are here to share with you some work that they have been doing as part of our student council. Coming on board late to LMS, we had a little bit of a late start. Mr. Frazier has also taken on the role as our student council advisor this year. For those of you that have known LMS for a while, Mrs. Sid had done it for a long time, and as this was her retirement year, she passed the torch on to Mr. Frazier, who's done a great job. And they have put together this whole presentation talking about what they've done, what their plans are for the future, and they're going to talk to you a little bit about it. And I know they're ready to introduce themselves, so I will let them start with that, tell you what their name is and their role in student council.
Okay, I'm Zachariah Alwan. I'm president.
My name is Hannah Boyd, and I'm the vice president.
I'm Lila Mason. I'm the treasurer.
And you just tell me when to advance the slide. I'll make sure that it's up
Okay.
there for everybody, okay?
For our November food drive, the Make a Difference food drive had 1,125 non-perishable canned goods donated to the Litchfield Food Pantry, by our staff and students?
Our February Spirit Week was from the 21st to the 25th. Monday was Sports Day, where we had 138 participants. Tuesday was Twin Day, and we had 123 participants. Wednesday was Decades Day with 116 participants. Thursday was Color Day with 292 participants. And Friday was Hat Day with 216 participants. With a close race, the 8th grade won the Spirit Week competition based on participation counts.
Which was the most popular decade?
We didn't take count of that.
Oh, no.
During the Spirit Week, each
80s.
student who donated canned good to help end 60 hours of hunger were celebrated during lunches with Hoodsie Cups. The student council was able to collect and donate over 100 items for this wonderful cause.
Our plans for the April Spirit Week, the 11th through the 15th. On Monday, sun's out, fun's out. Dress following dress code, but like it's a tropical day. Tuesday, my future's so bright I have to wear shades. Wear your sunglasses all day. Wednesday, anything but a backpack. Bring any bag but a backpack to carry your stuff around school. Thursday, pajama day. Wear your pajamas. Friday is Lynx Day, whiteout and blue out day. 5th and 6th would be whiteout. 7th and 8th will be blue out. Pep rally Spirit Sick based on week-long participation.
You guys want to explain why we're doing it the week before vacation?
The 6th grade is going to Nature's Classroom, so we moved it up a week.
Litchfield Fire Association, the LMS Student Council has decided to donate fundraising proceeds to the local charities after December 17th, acknowledging the efforts of both the Litchfield and Fire and Police departments helping keep the students and the staff of Litchfield School District safe made more sense than a larger national charity. Giving back to the community was an important aspect when choosing where the money would go.
The Hat Day fundraiser raised a total of $209 for the Litchfield Police and Fire Associations. Each student or staff member wearing a hat had to bring in $1, while some brought in $20 to make a local donation benefiting our community.
Dodgeball tournament, April 11th through the 15th. The gym is scheduled for a dodgeball tournament. Student council has talked to the Unified Arts teams about helping out as they showed interest in helping with the tournament. For each team that registers, a fee will be paid, which will then be donated to the Litchfield Police and Fire Associations.
What do we, as members of the Student Council, love about the LMS Student Council? Being in Student Council allows you to build and foster leadership skills, voice your ideas on school issues and things you want to see happen in your short years in middle school. In addition to leadership skills, we work on teamwork skills and break off into smaller groups to get things accomplished. Student Council gives back to not only the school community, but brainstorms ideas on how to make a difference in local communities as well. All of these skills we have learned through Student Council are important skills to help our future selves down the road.
April 15th, LMS will have a pep rally acknowledging fall and winter sports as well as academic achievements. The pep rally will also consist of the dodgeball championship match as well as the ever popular teachers game. Penny wars will be held so students can elect the staff they would like to see play dodgeball.
Litchfield Middle School Swag Store. The LMS School Store for merch will be open through April 8th. Sweatshirts, long sleeves, short sleeves, sweatpants, hats, and 2 or more different color options can be purchased.
So why do we open that early? Do you remember why?
No.
So that we can make sure our Griffin friends can get their swag as they're coming up into the middle school and be ready
Great idea.
to come in.
And this is our second round. We had a time before the holidays and school where families were able to order things. So the store is active. Actually, it's open right now. We haven't really promoted it yet, but we're going to start, especially with the fourth grade coming up to visit and the week after. So
Swag makes a great promotion gift too. That's great.
That's the end of our slideshow.
Well done.
Yeah.
Sounds like
Excellent
you have
choices
great
for
stuff
charities
going
too,
on.
right? Well done.
Thank you.
All right, you guys did a great job.
Thank you so much.
So,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Harrison, if I can,
Yes.
and students, if you could just stay a second, I'm going to improvise a little piece that I think is important to do.
Okay.
And while the students are here, it's perfect time. So if you would join me over here.
Absolutely.
So some time ago, we had talked about the new conference room at our middle school and recognizing some of the long-term leaders that we've had in the building, right? So you know Ms. Grantham, but you remember Mr. Lecklider. What's really unique about Litchfield Middle School is that they've only got 2 principals in the entire time that's been in existence. And so the new conference room that was built, we have made plaques. So from 1988 until 2005, Bo Schlichter served as the principal of the school. And so we want to hang Bo's photo in that conference room. The tri-cut cricket is going to be used on the door to label it as the principal's conference room. And so there's a plaque that you will see at some point. You don't have to hang it up. We'll have Ms. Grantham bring it back later. But then for Mr. Lecklider, who served from 2005 until 2021, which again is a good long tenure. So like many of the faculty who are retiring this year, you know, we've had leaders that have come to Litchfield and stayed because it's a good place to be. And we have faculty who have come and stayed and dedicated their career here. And I think it's just important that we take note of that because you're not going to find a lot of schools that have been in existence from 1988 until now with only 3 principals in charge. Right? And so I think it's really important that we start to capture some of that history. So we have these nice plaques made up and Ms. Grant will take them from here and get them hung up. But I wanted to hand them to the students.
Fantastic. Thank you, guys.
Great.
So thank you for these, Dr. Jetty, and we will make sure they get a place of honor in our conference room.
Good job, guys.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
for
you so
coming.
much.
Yep, good
It's
job.
great to see student leaders again at LMS. Thank you for all you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You guys are doing an excellent job, you guys.
I think
Fantastic.
I gained something there.
Um,
You probably just ran into the input on the wall.
Yeah.
That input is not in good shape.
You're still inputted though, so, right? All right. That was great. All right, with that, we will open up community input. Just a reminder to everybody watching from home that you can join us for community input via Google Meet at meet.google.com/HAR-JANA-HNK, or you can join us by phone at 5146. The PIN is 911-992-355#. So do we have anyone here that would like to make any public comment?
We're back.
Welcome back.
Can we just clarify, do we need to stick to current agenda items given?
Oh, right, for the first, yeah, we approved a policy that for the first community input, we'll talk about agenda items that we're already prepared to hear about. And then the second, any other comments are welcome at the second public input at the end of the evening. So you guys are good because graduation.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make
But
a
this
motion
is
to
on the
amend that
agenda.
policy.
I'm going to take a guess you're here for graduation. That's on the agenda.
That is on the agenda.
So you're welcome to come up.
I don't want them sitting there all.
Okay,
rest of the
good.
evening.
It was already on the agenda.
Excuse me, can someone tell me who's there? Is it Catherine Kerrigan and Kylie?
And Faith.
And Faith.
And Faith Vivital. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
You just need to say your names and you don't need your addresses, but yeah.
I know your voices. You don't have to say your names.
Okay, I'm Kylie York, and I'm a senior.
Faith Vidable, senior. Catherine Kerrigan, I'm a senior.
Great, thank you.
We're sort of back to talk about the graduations. Hopefully, you all had a chance to read the statements about the announcements. A couple of things we wanted to clarify. The first thing was there was kind of a question about how the signatures were taken, that's the word. So basically it had a statement with the petition already, which is on here. And then the students were handed the papers. They were asked to read over it. It was up to them to form their own opinions, and whoever had the paper would walk away. It wasn't like, oh, this is what it is, just quickly sign it. They had to read it themselves. Like, I know when I was doing it, I know the other people handing it around, I wouldn't say like, oh, this is what it is, and put it in my own words. It was up to them to read the statement that was with it.
Mm-hmm. And once it had been going around for a while, people started coming up to us and just signing it. That's all.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Can we clarify what we're talking about?
Oh.
So I'm up to speed.
So basically the past 3 to 4 years, students have been fighting to get back to the point at graduation where once you say your name, you also state your future plans.
Yes.
And a few years ago, the reason it kind of got taken out was students felt they weren't being like represented as well or put like to as high of a standard because I don't know, whatever happened, but we decided to make it optional. So you are welcome to say it if you would like. You are welcome to not use the term workforce anymore. We would make it so you can use the trade that you are planning on going into, or if you're going into the military, make it a little bit more open so that people can like show what exactly they are going into.
Yeah. So just more freedom with that whole thing, which is sort of takes away that whole idea of like a student feeling pressure, I guess.
Do you want to tell them how many signatures we got?
Yes, we have
90.
90 out of 92 students. And then there's 14 student statements.
And all the statements are from
And that's 90 out of 92 to return it to the way it was. Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
To
And
make it
the-
optional as well.
With, yeah, it does have the two differences, like Catherine said, is that it's optional and that before it was just like either workforce or the college, but now there's no workforce. It's more of like whether it's your specific trade,
Cool.
if that's welding or whatever that may be.
And the statements we got were not only from students going to universities, we also got a statement from someone going into the military and people going into trades. So we think we have a pretty diverse support group for this. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public input?
Just in terms of practice, I know you just shared the link with the community through the television, right? Is this link also shared
It's on the agenda.
on the agenda so people can click it at any time? Is it just for community input or is it for the entire meeting they can listen in on?
No, they can view the meeting on YouTube, LCTV, but they can participate in the Google Meet for public input.
Just for public input. Got it. Thank you.
And this link has been fixed for over a year. So every meeting,
Yep.
this is the
I'm
same.
just getting
link to-
acclimated here.
to
Thank you.
come- Yeah,
Yep.
but you had asked a question earlier, so.
Calendar that I post too as well.
Thank you.
So are we going to talk about this later in the agenda?
Yeah.
Because if not, I'd like to make a motion to allow administration to read students' after-school plans.
I think that's later in the agenda, correct?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's coming up.
Because I don't see this any different than decorating their hats. We let them do that. I didn't want them to do it, but we let them do that, 4 years ago? And I've seen mistakes on the hats that weren't cool, but we let the kids do that. They fought for that. They are fighting for this.
All right,
But
hold
we'll
that
talk about
thought.
that
That's
Let's-
IKF
Let's
policy.
discuss this during
No?
the superintendent's comments.
Oh, okay. My bad.
Yeah, which is
Coming up.
coming up.
Okay.
After the break.
That's right. After correspondence. Go ahead, Dr. Jetty. I did not prepare correspondence this evening. Liz,
Well, are we still in community input?
oh, I'm sorry. I have to close it first.
Yeah,
Is there any
so-
other community input from anyone who's here? Okay, anyone on the Google Meet?
There is nobody on the Google Meet.
All right, and we haven't received any phone calls in. So with that, I will thank everyone who provided the board with comments on tonight's agenda. We have now ended public comment session number 1, and the board will conduct its business in view of the public. No further comments can be made by the public during the meeting, but there is a second public comment session scheduled prior to the end of the meeting. We'll open it back up at that point. That will bring us to correspondence. Usually the vice chair reports on any correspondence that the board has received. Liz, are you in a place where you can do that?
I didn't see any correspondence this week. Did anyone else?
I don't remember
Yes.
any.
There was a request
did.
for the agenda from Mr. Norton
Oh, right.
Yeah.
on Friday, I believe.
Thank you.
Oh, I haven't checked my school email since Friday, sorry. Or last Friday?
Yep. That will fall to you, Liz, as vice chair.
I better figure this out.
Okay.
Um,
And
I've
then
also
there-
received 3 correspondence directly.
just to you?
Yes.
Okay. So how we
don't typically read those.
we don't
in.
typically read those in as because they need to only messages addressed to the school board as a whole.
As a
So how do
whole.
we address it?
So you can respond back to them and say, if you would like your communication to be read to the public,
or shared with the board.
share it with the whole school board email.
There's also, if you look, there's a section for school board comments, so you can comment then as an individual.
All right, thanks.
Welcome.
Thank you. I think as far as correspondence, that was it though, right? The request for the agenda from Mr. Norton. Okay. So we will then move on.
Oh, I did see that. Whoops.
It's been a crazy week. That brings us to superintendent comments.
Oh, can I ask one more question? Where exactly is the agenda posted every week besides the homepage of the SAU?
On the calendar.
On the calendar?
Do you mean electronically or physically?
Electronically.
On the calendar and on the website. Under school board agendas on the website, and on the calendar at the bottom of the website, there's a calendar. And you can click on the date and it's in there.
Right.
I would like to post it on our school board Facebook page for full transparency so people will know instead of having to go through all the steps to find the other one. But we can talk about that at our board meeting.
I think that's
I
a good
did
idea.
post it today. But if we want a more formal process, maybe it needs to come from, maybe we need to give authorization for like Michelle or somebody from the district to actually post it. You know, I do it when I have a chance.
Mhm.
So,
I think making that part of the routine
yeah.
is a good idea. All right.
Thank you.
So my comments.
It's time for your comments.
So we do have the 22 election results to just sort of let the public know. A big thank you to the voters of Litchfield because we had 5 people running for the board and 2 clear winners for the board seats in the first article or election of officers. We also had our budget, which was passed, although it was not the school board's recommended budget. It was the budget committee's recommended budget. But that is the budget that we've been given, and we will take our fiduciary responsibility with that going forward to be responsible with the funds that have been entrusted to us in the year ahead. Article number 2 was our collective bargaining agreement. And by the way, that was a decisive vote, 1,037 people to 496 people supporting the budget. Article number 2 was the collective bargaining agreement for our teachers. And we also have a decisive vote there of 1,068 people voting yes and 489 opposed. And so we really do appreciate the hard work that our committees did negotiating that. Anybody knows with a CBA that there's give and take all across the board. But in the end, it's a fair agreement. It'll help to attract and retain teachers in Litchfield, and the support of the public is much appreciated. For the first time since I've been here, I guess it's been on in the past, but we did have Article 3, which was asking the question, if the teachers' agreement failed, can we have a special meeting? Can we renegotiate and have a special meeting? The voters backed us up on that by 867 to 676. The voters said, if it doesn't work out, we'll give you another shot at it. And so again, a show of support for the board's work and the board's warrant. Article 4, our support staff, 1,069 yeses to 471 noes. And folks who have been watching us for the last year know that between our custodians and our secretaries and our food service workers and our paraprofessionals. Just phenomenal work has gone on to keep us open. I was on the phone with a parent last night on a separate matter, and they said, I didn't thank you last year for having in-person learning all year. And I just want to say thank you for making sure that happened. I said, well, it was a team effort. I didn't do it. But again, our support staff were part of that team, and we could not have done it without them. And here's a great sign of support for that. Article 5 was, if that didn't pass, can we do it again? And again, the public supported us on that and said, absolutely, have a second go at it if necessary. Article 6, which was probably the article that had the most public conversation about whether this was the right thing to do. And at the end of the day, it was 839 people saying yes to 707 opposed. And that's the renovation of our middle school. That is going to be a massive project. It's going to take longer than any of us want it to. That's just the nature of doing work at this time of year. But again, the board came out strong for it. And the budget committee that had some early questions and concerns ultimately supported us with that. And we are digging in as of the day after the vote to begin figuring out how to get this pulled off. So again, a huge sign of support from the voters. And then Article 7, which was the contingency fund, and we were really clear that we wanted to. Article 7 is the capital improvements expendable trust fund, and that was to put an additional $125,000 into our fund for new construction, renovation of existing facilities, or the planning of those items. And again, the voters by 999 to 536 supported us with that. That's the third year in a row that we've had that article on there, and the voters have backed us up each time. That's consistent with the capital improvement plan. And I think it shows that the voters are behind the work that we're doing to get the facilities taken care of. And then Article 8, which was amended at deliberative to allow the contingency fund. And the board was clear, not so much in the warrant article, but publicly, that the purpose of that was land for an elementary school. And you committed to spending it in that way. And again, the voters backed us up by 952 to 570. So it was really a thank you to the voters and to the board that put a tremendous amount of time and energy into developing that warrant. And I just like to comment, and I've said this to Mr. Cutter, but my sense is when we use words like shady and trust, I know we have work to do. Don't ever think for a minute that I don't believe there's work to do, because there is. However, at the end of the day, the voters in a democratic vote did back us up and supported the work that we're doing. And so do we have more work to do? Yes, we do. We have to keep at it. But overall, Litchfield did back us up on that, and I think that's a good sign. School calendar. So I am coming back to you tonight to ask for another vote. And the vote is because I'm going to recommend, even though you approve the calendar for next year, I'm going to recommend an adjustment to it. And give me a second to get it pulled up here.
I have to get it too. Let's see.
So click the second link.
Yeah.
The link isn't correct.
Nope.
Going to invoice
Invoice template.
There's two links there.
Oh, yes, right.
One of them was for the school board meeting calendar.
Right. The other one's for the school year.
School calendar.
Nope, but the one that says invoice template is wrong, Michelle. That should be the,
Invoice.
I don't know what it is, but that should be the proposed calendar.
Oh,
that,
for goodness
or
sake.
if she gave it to you, if you could just fix that link for us, so I'll get it on the screen. So here's what happened. We brought forward the calendar last time. Traditionally, the board takes the calendar under advisement. We toss it out in the ether. We seek feedback from the public. We will, provide an opportunity for teachers to give input, et cetera. So I was a little surprised when we voted on it, which is fine. And then we got feedback, and the feedback came from various groups saying, wait a second, we've always had, and these were the 2 dates that I heard feedback on. We've always had the Friday of Labor Day off. Now, I was proposing that we not do that, but public sentiment is you ought to have the Friday of Labor Day off. And so I'm bringing back a calendar when the link is fixed that shows that day being taken as a holiday. So basically, we would have 4 days of school, a Friday off, then Labor Day Monday, 4 days of school, and then we're rolling into September. So that's one amendment I'm suggesting that you adopt. The other is Monday, the 2nd of January.
Yes.
A lot of feedback was, gosh, people are traveling and, so forth. I mean, I was trying to be ambitious to get to an end date that was reasonable. I know in board conversation, there was talk about, can we even lop off the Monday that's the hanging Monday, and cut another day out? And now I'm actually saying, let's add 2 days and bring us to Wednesday, the 14th. And what I'm hearing from folks who reached out to me is, if you're done before June 15th, that's still early. Their sense is that's still early. And so that allows a good old fashioned snow day and bringing us till Thursday, the 15th, if we need that. And it would allow us to wrap up. So the calendar is exactly what you approved last time, with 2 more holidays, which are September 2nd and January 2nd, and ending on Wednesday, the 14th, if there are no snow days. That would be the 180th day.
If you refresh.
Yeah, I see it.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the amended 22-23 school calendar.
Second.
I will. Yeah. Okay. June is black and white, but the others are. Is that weird? Maybe
Well,
it's not shaded with anything.
it's not shaded. I had asked, I'm like, do we shade the 14th?
Right,
But the concern
okay.
was, if you shade the 14th,
Oh.
and that's what gets put on the fridge, and you have a good old fashioned snow day, the 14th is
Yeah,
still
right.
shaded. So
Okay.
we
Okay.
purposely are leaving it undelineated
Okay.
by color.
Got it.
I don't believe I can second the motion because I was the nay vote on the calendar last time for these reasons. So I don't think I can
seconded
second
it
it.
already.
But, okay, good. All right.
You're good.
Phew.
And this
Okay.
is a new calendar, so I think it's a new vote.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it's not revisiting the old one.
Good. Well, it addresses my concerns from last time, so I'm happy about that.
And I shared in your concerns, so thank you for that change.
All right. Any further discussion? All right. Seeing none, all in favor of the new amended calendar, say aye.
Aye.
Roll call.
Heidi?
Roll call vote, right? Yeah.
Roll call.
I
Tara?
Aye.
Aye.
And Liz?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. So it passes 5-0.
Thank you.
I feel better about the new calendar.
We need to remember next year, we're not voting the first time we put it out there. We're going
Right.
to
Right.
let it gel,
Mhm.
see what happens, and then we'll vote after that.
And we have a school board meeting calendar.
Yeah, so a couple of things that Michelle and I are seeking input from the board. So here is the calendar that is sort of refreshed of what we've done this year. I want to point out a couple of things for you to think about, and then we'll go back and take them one by one. So the month of July, we have not picked the meeting. I think it's always important. What we've done in the past is one meeting in July, and we try to find a time where people know they're not on vacation, so we can have 5 members here if possible. Then we get back into the swing of things in August. You'll notice that we're sticking with the 1st and 3rd Wednesdays as our meeting night. The only time that we deviate from that is in
March.
Thank you, March, because once again, February vacation heads into March. So that ends up being a pickle. Although I will say, because the 14th voting day is the latest it can be, to the second Tuesday, so you can get a meeting in before. So we won't be under the pressure to have a meeting before the final vote, right? So we'll have the March meeting in. The other piece is at the bottom, you'll notice that we listed the dates the schools and Mary will come. I'm assuming the board likes that. I always appreciate seeing the students here. I know from the admin team, it's a better pattern for them to be responsible once every other month versus here every month. And then that meeting got very lengthy with 3 presentations, right? So this sort of spaces it out and focuses it, but I want to make sure you're happy with it.
I do like this format that we've had this past year. I wonder if board members could give input into what kinds of topics and what kinds of presentations we'd like to hear.
Would you welcome that?
Would you welcome that, or is that micromanaging?
I don't want to speak for everybody because again, I'm new here, but if there's something that is coming to the surface that you'd like information on, we'd rather bring with us the background. I think it'll be easier for us to have an opportunity to prepare versus kind of on the spot.
Sure.
We're happy to answer questions when we come, I'm sure,
Great.
if there's something that comes up, but, if there's something specific that you're looking for information on, I think that I would be game for that. I'll just put it that way.
And if there are suggestions from the community, they can certainly email the school board and, we can take that into consideration.
As a part of this planning, are there any meetings that happen on a regular basis, whatever regular means, with the LEA and LSSA?
So I meet monthly with the presidents and vice presidents of both associations. So on the first Thursday, I believe, is LEA, and then the second Thursday is the LEA or the LSSA. So I do have those regular routine meetings. The other thing is the leadership's always invited to attend meetings. So, but
I mean, in
not
terms of like a principal update to the board, that doesn't happen from the LEA or LSSA.
it has not traditionally happened.
I'd like to see that as a part of our planning.
Can you repeat that, Andrew?
I'd like to hear from the LEA and LSSA on a regular basis to the board. Just like
In public or non-public?
I guess it depends what's being discussed, but in public, ideally.
I guess we have to contact them and see what they think.
You can reach out.
That's
and see if
interesting.
that's,
That isn't a bad thing.
something they'd like to do.
I think it's fantastic to do, but I don't know why it's not already happening, but that's just me.
They also know that they have an open seat to all of our meetings and are welcome to come and talk to the board. We haven't seen the attendance that we would like to see.
And I think one thing also to keep in mind is that those are voluntary organizations. So they speak for membership only, but not all members or not all bargaining unit members are members of the association. So that's just something to keep in mind. But
Sorry, I'm not sure if I can chime in. Can I chime in?
Yes.
So the chiming in, I would say, is we work to bring teachers as principals. So every time I've come, I brought a teacher with me to have presentations, whether it be on BEST or whether it's on robotics, or Mr. Frazier's here as representative of our staff and of one of those associations at least. So I know that my colleagues do that as well. So we do try to bring in teachers as a voice.
Thank you.
I think it's a great idea, actually. I think it would be good to have that feedback and to have that here. So I'm maybe not necessarily every month, but quarterly.
Whatever
or,
regularly is defined as,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
We used to have LEA and LSS representation at our meetings. Yeah.
Under different leadership.
Yep.
Yeah. And we would encourage that and welcome that again, I imagine. Speaking for the full
I would hope the
need to be
teachers
invited.
would be open with their principals and Mrs. Grantham would report to Dr. Jetty, but I would be open to hearing from the LEA or from staff. I won't say LEA, from staff.
Something to think about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. All right. Do you need a motion to approve the school board?
well,
calendar?
I really, how would you like to proceed on July? So if we
Oh.
follow our practice, we would all check our calendars in the next 2 weeks and adopt this because remember this starts in July. We have this year's calendar already set.
Right,
So
right.
maybe take a look at your July vacation plans and we'll see if we can pick a day that works. I could send a poll out.
Yeah, that's fine.
if that's
I already know
helpful.
when I'll be away in July. Did you have something to add, Heidi?
No, I was just going to say my conflict is always the first week of August. So I would just be remote for that August 3rd meeting. But
I know I have 2 weeks in July. I'm not going to be here. I think before there's any motions or entertainment for this calendar, some of the things that I've been thinking about on this calendar, is outsider looking in, so to speak, are we have a lot of things to talk about as a board over the next 365 or so days, a lot. And if these meetings are going from 5 to 9 and beyond twice a month, there's a couple things happening, right? Either there's too much on the agenda, there's too much scope creep, which I don't know if that's true, but maybe. Or we need to increase the frequency of these meetings, right, to get everything covered. And as I look at this calendar and I'm thinking about that, I don't know what the right answer is, but I'm very much interested in hearing others' opinions.
I think it's a difficult thing. We want to balance, community engagement and input and, hearing from everybody and correspondence and everything. But there is a lot of business that needs to be completed in the scope of a meeting. I think we're all very busy. And in addition to these meetings, we're all serving on committees that have additional meetings. So I don't know what the answer to that is. It's definitely a balance. But I would entertain having more meetings, I guess, or, we can just be more efficient with sticking to the agenda items.
I mean, I think about I'm reflecting upon what happened this past year, right? And how things seem to be rushed and put together last minute. That was the optics, regardless of what happened, right? The community optics were just that. How do we fix that, right? Do we need to meet more, especially with a big ticket item potentially coming in March, right? We need to be fully supportive and behind it. We need to have our I's dotted and T's crossed. And if it's more meetings that need to make that happen, then that's what we need to do.
And I think we have discussed that as the Facilities Improvement Committee and what we've learned from this past election and what we can change moving forward.
Can I ask, what do other school boards do? And I'm sure you're going to tell me it runs the gamut and it depends on the town. But what do other school boards do for our surrounding towns? Hudson, Londonderry, do they meet weekly? Do they meet biweekly? Do they meet monthly?
So I'll report on my two experiences. So
Yeah.
the Merrimack Valley School Board traditionally meets once a month, Monday night, couple-hour meeting into non-public. They start at 7, and their rule is they adjourn at 10. So if they're halfway through something, they adjourn at 10.
Yep.
And so it's a 3-hour meeting. However, they have weekly meetings in committees that are doing the work. So facilities improvement would be a board committee, and they meet, well, I say weekly meetings. The committee might meet once a month, and then they're plugging ahead. The policy committee, the student management committee, et cetera. So they do a lot of work in committees. But then when it comes forward to the board, there had been this historical thing of, well, I wasn't on the committee, so whatever the committee is recommending is what we'll do. But then people started to push back on that and say, well, wait a minute, 2 people were on the committee and there's 11 members on the board. So, they started to hash stuff out a little bit. So that's one experience. The Bedford experience is very similar to what we have. Not as many committee work, twice a month meetings, and but board members were involved in things like PERC, their version of PERC, et cetera. So they function very similar to the way Litchfield's functioning. And just a history check, this is the way it's been done in Litchfield for a while, right? This is not new.
Well, if you want to get historical, when I first came, there was a policy committee, and the board met three times a month.
The board or the committee?
Excuse
The committee, the policy committee did, or the board did?
The board met 3 times a month, and meetings would go from, what time did they start? 6 o'clock to after midnight. That all changed a couple of years later. The board decided the policy committee was not needed because after I got hired, I wrote just about all the policies. That was a long 2 years. The board decided to meet twice monthly and expand their committees, which is what we've done. I know Londonderry meets twice a month, and they have, similar to Litchfield, they have committees, in case you're wondering about Londonderry. So that's kind of like history in a nutshell for Litchfield.
Hudson meets twice a month on Mondays.
And do they have a lot of committees,
Yes.
board committees that do work? Yeah.
I think, yes. But I don't know if we just have more to talk about, or I don't know. If we needed an extra meeting a month, I would be fine with that.
Yeah, that's what I'm leading towards at this point, is a third meeting a month in anticipation, particularly of the new GMS.
Yeah. I kind of go another, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good.
I would rather meet twice a month and know that I'm going to be out those 2 nights at a school board meeting every month and get the work done then. I do anticipate, though, having more meetings and more community forums and more community, opportunities for feedback especially with the GMS project coming forward. So I think, our officially posted board meetings, I'm comfortable with 2 a month, understanding that they're a little bit lengthy and we get through a lot of business. And there will be a bigger time commitment from all the board members this year, just because of the nature of the project.
Couple of thoughts that I have is that I feel like the last 2 years, we've always had Corona, and then we also went through a big policy review, which, that was last
Takes
year,
time.
right? That ended.
It's always
probably
been
6
like this since I've been on the board. And what's
No,
that,
no,
5,
the
6 years?
policies, my first 2 years on here, we only went through a few policies, it seemed like, but then we did a whole slew of new ones, and those they took a substantial amount of time.
We still have hundreds to go through, don't we? 100?
I know, but we're not at the frequency that we were doing previously. I'm just saying they were stepped up. So hopefully that time can be reallocated. I think one thing for our meetings that we as a board need to stay focused on is staying really high level. I do find that sometimes we can get very much in the weeds for certain things. So I think that if we can all keep ourselves in check and try to stay high level oversight, planning, policies, that will help speed up the meetings. I think the subcommittees, I'm all for the subcommittees, and also for special meetings for big projects as well. I think that makes sense.
And if I could just share with the board. So one thing that we talked about was the Facilities Improvement Committee. So that's on Wednesdays it's the opposite board, right? It's the second and fourth Wednesday from 3:30 to 5:30. I'm going to reach out to Litchfield TV about getting that broadcast, because our thought was that if that's something that was accessible, there are reps from the town that serve on that. So, that's going to become a workhorse committee. If you remember, it started off as an hour and a half, and then it became a 2-hour meeting. We sort of expanded it to make sure that we were covering what we needed to. So, but if we can have that broadcast and accessible to the public, I think that will help us also. I don't know if they'll be able to do
The
it. but-
education piece won't be.
I think we should have 3 meetings until we get through all the outdated policies that are more than 5 years old. I don't think community outreach is a meeting.
We have 97 policies that are over 10 years old, with a few of them being over 35, right? Last
Is-
approval date on them.
Yeah, I just updated everything on the web. We have two sections that have to be done, which are the bigger sections, I and J. And we've already updated some of those policies, and we're working.
But how
on the
long
rest.
is it going to take us to get through the other 97? If we could
Well,
take a
I don't think
couple
there
more
are
meetings.
97. I don't think there's 97, actually. It all depends on how many policies you want to do per meeting.
And how much time we spend talking about how many meetings we should have.
Well, again,
So-
there's a lot that we need to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the other part that I just want to roll into this conversation is meeting start time. Right. I went back and looked at the minutes from 2016, just as a sample, 2016 through last year. And we've shifted from what was once a 6:30 start time to a 6 to a 5:30 to a 5. Right. I don't know why that's happened. I don't recall those conversations of why that happened.
Those were board decisions that we made, mostly because Dr. Jetty has an hour and a half commute. So the feeling was he's here all day on school board days, has meetings in the afternoon. And if we could, I believe this was the conversation that we had as a board.
Well, Rob was also getting up at 5 in the morning. I think
Right.
I was getting up at 5 in the morning.
Right.
I mean, so it's just,
It's
the public may not realize that we meet after this, so we're
I
not
get it.
getting out till 10 o'clock. If we can consolidate and go faster.
Yep, if we can be more efficient.
I'm just
then we can
saying, I
potentially do
think
that.
in order to drive in the spirit of community involvement again, having a 5 p.m. start time is not conducive to that because of working families.
I agree with you. And I actually, I don't mind moving it back to 6 o'clock, but I'm sensitive to everybody else's needs as well.
But again, that is also, if we move it back, then you lose an hour, right? And that just adds, so it's all playing together, right? I'm supportive completely of moving it back to 6. I think it's better for the town and community involvement. I'm behind that. But then we need to think about, are we going to put in a stop time? Like at the budget committee, we had a hard stop at 9:30 and I live by that, right?
We wouldn't be done,
Well, but that's the
even
thing.
if we
I don't know.
went fast.
Maybe it's 10 p.m. I don't know, right? And maybe we need to increase the frequency of these meetings.
Okay.
So is this something that we're not going to approve this school board calendar today. We can have some conversations, or we can put some thought into it and feel it out and then come back and regroup at the next meeting?
Absolutely. This doesn't begin until July 1st. So there's plenty of time to figure those pieces out.
And
I'm
then if
assuming that
we-
we're staying with the existing
do
calendar.
approve it and we have our planning meeting over the summer and we decide to change it, we can always do that too.
Excuse me.
The one thing I will just say on policy is I know some policies are very old, but that's also because in some cases they're statutory. The statute hasn't
Right.
changed. So you can revise it and you're just going to say it does what statutorily
It's
you
no
have to do, right? So,
timestamp on it. Yeah.
But I just
it
want
will
them
get
out
that-
of the way, Mike. I don't have a problem with it, but they take up a huge chunk of our meetings sometimes. And it's by no fault of the policies. We just need to plow through them. If that means an extra meeting for a couple months, I'd be more than happy to do that.
But
Just so we can take something off the plate of our regular school board meetings.
And I'm not saying that needs to happen in July of 22 and forward.
Right.
I think it needs to happen like in April or May. So I think there needs to be a modification to the current calendar to figure this out. Anyway, no decisions tonight. I'm just
Okay.
throwing out ideas.
And if
Yep.
I just may, one other thing for the board to consider is capacity in our office,
Mhm.
right? So with all the routine things that we do, if Michelle is cranking to get 5 policies in front of you, we have to find time or capacity to get 6, 7,
Right.
10
A lot of
policies in
work
front
goes
of
into
you.
the
So it's
preparation
just
for
something to keep in mind that
Fair
how
point.
much do you want to chew on?
Mhm.
And
And keep in mind that most of those are going to be, when I reviewed the policies in the past, the sections I reviewed, most of those were reapprovals. Nothing had changed. Those
Right.
were easy.
They
Boom.
went pretty quickly.
The only ones that were discussions were the ones that did change, and most of those moved pretty quickly.
Mhm.
But I already worked on 5, so.
Mhm.
So we have 9 months for the next 9 meetings. We could do 10. We're not going to be done.
There's no
For a long,
deadline
long
for
time.
reapproving. This is an
It'll be
ongoing
done.
process.
It'll be done. We got through a chapter a meeting.
Okay.
oh yeah, but you're not going to do that with I and J.
No, not with I and J.
So I and J are big
That'll take probably
sections. That'll take
4
longer.
or 5 meetings to get that done, I think.
We'll get there.
Maybe it's a Saturday session. It's an 8-hour plow through. I don't know. It doesn't sound fun to me, but if that's what needs to get done, that's what needs to get done. I don't know.
Truth.
How
Well,
about,
maybe we need to first assess how many do we really need to approve by when?
right.
Because you're throwing out a number.
Well, and again, I just,
you're
Right.
bringing up these statutory things. Let's get a handle on, maybe by the next meeting, we can set a goal of, here are the policies that are 10 years and older, or whatever the criteria is. Which ones don't have any changes that we know of? Let's just assess it, and then we can actually have data to determine the next step.
271 policies are on our website. Out of the 271, because I went through them all in preparation for this, right? What better way to get acclimated?
Yeah.
98 of them are greater than 10 years last approved.
Is that after the one I sent you back?
I'm not even including that.
I'm mindful of this
A lot of those are
conversation.
updated.
I think it's a valuable conversation. I do think we need to make sure we have a schedule to revisit policies. But I also want to be mindful of Mrs. Grantham's time and Corey's time. We still have reports to get through
Yep.
and other new business. So I think if we table this, the school board meeting calendar for now, everybody has some, gather some thoughts on what needs to be achieved, how we might like to do it, what might work. Then we can come back either at our retreat and discuss it, or we can discuss it at our next meeting. Does that sound fair to everyone?
Yes.
Just want to make sure we get through our agenda for this evening.
In the spirit of recognizing Mrs. Grantham's time,
Mhm.
I'd like to make a motion to our agenda to move up the LMS Principal report to be after the superintendent section of the NHSBA board workshops. So it was before school board comments.
Second that.
All right. Do we have any further discussion? The question on the table is an amendment to the agenda this evening to move Mrs. Grantham's report up to before school board comments. Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? I'll go roll call. Heidi?
Aye.
Tara?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
Liz?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. That will change the agenda for this evening. So after we discuss the rest of Superintendent's report, we'll go on to Ms. Grantham's. Thank you. Okay, with that, we will go to our graduation follow-up discussion.
So I prepared and made a link to a document. I displayed it, and actually the students shouldn't be surprised by anything that I say because this mirrors the conversation that we had in my office that day. So just you asked us to take a look at the question about naming the future plans at graduation. And when I talked with the students, I talked about the whole notion of a ceremony versus a celebration. What is it that we're doing at graduation? And I've always defined a ceremony as an event where a change takes place. So at graduation, everybody walks in as a senior and everybody walks out as a Campbell graduate. They join the ranks of thousands of Campbell graduates at this point. So, you know, when you think about other ceremonies, things like weddings, you walk in unmarried and you walk out in a legal and in many cases, a religious bonding. A naturalization ceremony where somebody is not born in the United States, but then becomes a citizen through a ceremony. So they change at that ceremony. Versus celebrations are sometimes the things linked to those, like the wedding reception that you head off to afterwards. You know, a graduation party that is held after, well, I guess what is it going to be? The night of June 10th, right? So there'll be a lot of graduation parties that night, et cetera. So, you know, those are the festive events. And we want to keep in mind that there are ceremonies that are solemn where, you know, it's not always a celebratory event. A funeral, I think of as an example where, you know, it's a kind of solemn ceremony that you go through versus there are other ceremonies that are celebratory in nature because they're happy ceremonies, and graduation would be one of those. But we still do it with dignity and respect for everybody who's participating in that ceremony. So, you know, when I think about graduation, and I'm putting on my hat as a former school principal and also a school administrator at the central office level, you know, the changes that people walk in one way and walk out another. And I think anything you do relative to that change, right? You talk about the diploma, the conferring of a high school diploma. So announcing the type of diploma, it's a New Hampshire Scholars Diploma. It's a diploma of distinction. The GPA is, you know, in colleges, they read summa cum laude, you know, that kind of distinction that you mark. But even in college graduations, nobody ever announces where they're going afterwards. And so, you know, I totally appreciate where the students are coming from. And I think that's why we print in the program what the post-secondary plan is. But I don't see it as something that is announced there. It would be like saying at the end of the wedding ceremony, and we're going to have 2.3 children and a 4-bedroom house. You know, it's like you're projecting forward something that may or may not come true. And I know for a fact from my first graduation ceremony, I thought it was unusual that Campbell was saying where students were going. I had not seen it in any other graduation ceremony I'd ever participated in. And I know there were students who were saying things there under peer pressure to have something read. There were students who said they were going to colleges that they were not attending. And when I asked some of the counselors about it, they said, yeah, they felt pressured into having something to say. And I just thought, how sad, because the thing that occurs there is that graduation, that should be the piece that we're celebrating that we're recognizing in a celebratory manner. But getting into anything that has people feel like they need to outdo others, I just thought was concerning to me. The other document that I linked for you is Bill's.
Yeah, I requested access to it.
Shoot, it's not mine, it's Bill's. So I'm gonna display it. I apologize for that. So basically, Bill captured what his experience has been at Campbell with the graduation. You can see that he talks about the committee. So it's not something, the principal is largely in charge of organizing the ceremony itself, but there is a committee that is also involved. And at Campbell, it's been pretty steeped in history, which is nice to see. And you have folks like Sean McDonough, who has been involved from the beginning pretty much, Denise Freeman, who has been involved from the beginning, and they have sort of been the keeper of the tradition going forward. I asked Bill, at what point do students get involved? And he said around this time of year. So it's not, the graduation committee is not meeting in September because a lot of the traditions have been figured out. But once they get organized and up and going, they do invite students into the fold to have dialogue about it. And you can see here just some of his summary notes about what goes into it and some of the changes that he is proposing. So the board, and if I may, he and I share the sentiment that making sure that all students feel support.
Down to the bottom, I wanted to read that.
Yep, absolutely.
So what I was looking for was more of a history of, is this a longstanding tradition that has been at CHS since it opened? Or is this a recent addition in recent years?
So I asked
That's
that
kind of
question
information
also,
that-
and I thought Bill had it in here.
Yeah.
And this is the answer I received, that it was not part of the original tradition. That at some point, back when Mr. Manso was principal, the board had expressed concern about the number of students going on to post-secondary ed. There were some goals written relative to post-secondary. And so he felt as principal that announcing it there would help to encourage students. And so that is when it got added in. And then it was done, so I don't know when it started. We'll have to get an answer as to exactly when that occurred. And then Bill also found it uncomfortable for some students. He decided that it would, working with the committee, that it would not be worth continuing to do that. And so that stopped after, because I came to the class of 2018, I think. So starting with the class of 2019, he did not include it at that point, but went to the printed form. I mean, it's in the graduation program with future plan. It is printed, but it is not announced as a student walks across the stage. So
And it's still displayed. There's a TV, right, in Campbell, right when you walk in. Is it still displayed there as
It
you walk
is.
into the building? Okay.
And that includes what colleges you've been accepted to, right? It's not just the one that you've chosen. I haven't been in long enough.
It does, and you have to submit like your acceptance form to guidance.
Oh, okay. And then it's put up there. Okay.
Can I comment on this as a student rep? So just to clarify, Emma and I are not seniors, we're juniors. So this isn't our graduation, but like our job is to represent students of Campbell, and we feel like we should do this. I completely understand both sides of it and where people are coming from. But my question is, did the class of 2018 and when this started, did they sign a petition for these kids to do it, or did they just do it and not ask for the input of the class?
So it wasn't started with the class of 2018. That was the last class that it was done with.
Right.
It started, I don't know when Bob Manso was principal. Does anybody know that?
Before Laurie Rothaus.
So
He was there a while.
It was 2012, I think.
So
2012.
Michelle is thinking 2012 is around the time that it started. And I think my understanding is he brought it forward as a way to have it publicly announced where people were going. I had somebody who commented to me one time, well, how come students from your school aren't going to college? I said, of course they're going to college. What do you mean? And they said, well, it's not in the newspaper. And so, they're reading the Concord Monitor and you got the list of where everybody's going. And I'm like, guidance, we need to get it in the newspaper because people think it's not happening because it's not there. Other high schools are. So sometimes perception is, something that we work on. And I think that's why Bob started that practice.
I can't discount the fact that 90 out of 92 students would like this at their graduation.
That was my next
Just
question.
like they wanted their hats decorated, 3 or 4 years ago. And maybe next year they'll decide they don't want it red. And I don't think peer pressure should be an answer because we don't know what happened to these kids. And 14 students took the time to write a statement how they would like to have where they're going to college read.
So
Not that I like to, I appreciate your thoughts and sentiments, yours and Mr. Lonergan's, but I still think this is the kids' graduation, and they work so hard to go to some of these colleges into academies, into the workforce. They should be proud to go into the military. I think we should do what they want.
So just to confirm, the petition is to add this back in, correct? Okay.
Correct.
I'd like to make a motion to add the announcement of where the students are going as a part.
Post-secondary plan.
Yeah, post-secondary part as a part of the ceremony routine.
I second.
I don't recall 4 years ago or whenever it was that the students came forward with wanting to decorate their caps. I believe we deferred to the administration. We said it was I believe at that time we said it was a school administrator's decision. The board does not, it's not in the purview of the board to create a policy about caps.
I think I
and
was the
gowns.
only one who voted no, because I voted no on kids wearing hats in high school.
But I don't believe the graduation discussion. I think we reverted that back to the admins.
So if I may, I appreciate the motion. I would ask you to hold off until we discuss the high school graduation policy, because I want to talk about some elements that I put in there that I think are missing. And I mean, I would just say, we just talked about getting into the weeds, so what's the next?
That's why I'm
motion?
trying to move this forward, right? I mean,
Yes.
we're clear. We've now
Sorry,
debated
I
it.
wasn't- the next motion would be to change the colors or to change this is going to go down a real rabbit hole,
Right.
I think, potentially. If we can just hold off, graduation's not until June 10th. We got a little bit of time.
Right.
And if we hold off until we
I-
review that policy, I would just appreciate that.
Yeah.
There's a motion and a second. I think
Right.
we have to.
I'm
think
good
we
with
have to go
proceeding,
forward with
right?
the
I'm
vote.
listening to the 90 out of 92 students. I'm listening to the direction of what the students want. I'm comfortable with my motion. And we're in discussion, right? In my view, 100%, the students should be able to celebrate their successes and celebrate their accomplishments, right? I don't think it's right for us to not do this if this is what they want.
Can I comment as well? I have 100% respect for Mr. Lonergan and the graduation committee administration, but since we've started, and I know I'm only a junior, but since I started in this district, student leadership has been pushed upon us, and have your voice heard, have your voice heard. And you have 3 seniors who are here taking time out of their day, and you have 14 students and 90 students sign a petition, write a letter to do this. So here they are showing their student leadership to the board and administration, but there's nothing being done really about
We
it.
hear you. I hear you.
But it's very frustrating.
Okay.
Who is speaking?
That
Is that
was
Emily?
That was Emily, yeah.
All right.
Well, the voices.
My
are-
comment to this is I do support, I support the motion. I support allowing students to say where they're going. But further, I also think we as a school, why are we saying that kids, certain kids were, may potentially lie on where they're going? And you know what? I think it's our job to fulfill what we've put in our mission and our goals to provide a path to allow everybody to have their own individual path so that they, and I want them to feel confident in that path. And it doesn't have to be a forever path, everybody's job career path for this age group is, it's not a straight line. They change jobs constantly. We're looking to create adaptable and flexible people who can succeed. So anyway, not to belabor it, but
Thank you for that.
I just want kids to be happy with what you're doing today. Either, what type of achievement you're achieving is gonna.
I absolutely,
Yeah.
I absolutely agree. I just don't think that this is the purview of the school board. I just don't. I think
The school
that-
board's new, and it is, according to what I see.
I
And I'd like
understand.
to call the vote.
If I may, just one comment, you do have a graduation committee, people who have volunteered at the school who are making these decisions. You're now taking it out of their hands, and the board's making the decision. Just do so under advisement. Just take that under
I
advisement.
thought they haven't met yet.
But here's
They've met a couple of times
Vote
according
on
to
the
the
cap.
We
If
don't
I
know
can
what
briefly
their thoughts
respond
are.
to that,
we know
though.
what your thoughts are. And we know what Mr. Lonigan's thoughts are. What are the thoughts of Mrs. Freeman and Mr. McDonough?
But you could wait for that. That's a question, right? You could wait for that, but
I would say that I believe students should be on this committee from the beginning.
Absolutely.
And that was my concern last time when we heard about this, is that it appears that they meet towards the beginning of the year and then include the students in towards the end. I think the students could have been a part of this from the very beginning in terms of determining how they wanted it to go. And this wouldn't be the students feeling like they're not being heard on this. So
Or maybe have a bigger voice.
Yeah.
You know, maybe
Yeah.
they were actually there, but just in smaller numbers. I don't know
Correct.
who's on
Yeah.
the committee. I can't
Yeah.
read that far, but
again, valuable feedback to the high school and the committee. But I just,
This has been going on for months at this point. I think these students want to put it to bed or have us make a decision or not.
Madam
make a
Chairman, as
decision,
mentioned,
but-
I'd like to call the vote.
Okay, vote has been called. I will call a roll call vote. All in favor of amending, I don't even know what the motion is now, to allow students to have their postgraduate plans announced at graduation. I'll do roll call. Heidi,
I
Tara,
I
Aye.
Andrew, Liz,
Aye.
and I abstain.
You
Congratulations.
can't abstain.
I can abstain. I absolutely can
Why?
abstain. Because I don't believe that this is a school board matter. I
Then
believe,
vote no.
I also,
abstaining.
I can abstain.
Why? You can't abstain. It doesn't have a direct monetary.
It doesn't have an effect on the vote. I have every right to abstain and hold my peace. Thank you. That brings us, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you for reaching out and speaking up. I appreciate it.
and thanks for
And
hanging
following
out
the
and
process.
staying.
Yeah. Okay, that brings us to the NHSBA workshops.
um,
I think we already mentioned them.
so actually, you get the emails from the NHSBA.
Yeah, I
right?
just wanted
So
to make sure that Mr. Carter was receiving them as well.
we gave it to him on paper and
Okay.
he has been signed up, I believe, for the emails. So those will start to flow to
Okay.
him. Like,
Yeah, aside from what I received yesterday, I haven't done anything else with that, but
Okay.
There's been a lot
Do
this
you want
week.
one you can read better?
no, that's fine. I'm good. I'm good. Thank you.
So the next, just quick topic, retreat planning. So last year, reminder to the board that we did kind of the orientation around board responsibilities meeting with the NHSBA. We then did a collective bargaining retreat with Mike Elwell. Both of those ran in the spring. And then we did a financial retreat in the fall. And so I don't think we need the collective bargaining session this year because we're not bargaining. But I do think an opportunity to get together in the spring and to do some work makes sense. Last year, we had a kind of dinner meeting in order to conduct that business. And so I'd be open to that again if the board directs Michelle and me to organize and pick a date to have it. And based on earlier discussion, it sounds like some community engagement planning. We have board goals around engagement.
Culture.
And I think really digging into what does that mean? What does that look like? And so forth would make sense. So I suggest that as a topic, but it's your.
This is typically held in the spring. Is it just a dinner thing or is it like a day away? I mean, how is this held in the past?
It
I don't
was
know.
just held last year for the first time.
First time last
So
year.
There's
Okay.
not typical.
And it was a dinner meeting. So we ate and talked and recorded notes and actually the board goals, if you've seen the board goals, they came out of that one of the sessions that we had. So
I'm just cautious about how you do this because we'll have a quorum and we're talking about school business and that should be public information.
it was, I mean, we
Is it recorded on TV or? I mean,
no, we posted it. It was a work session, so it was not here and it was not broadcast, but it was posted and recorded more.
And we also had legal counsel present, so there
Right.
was,
That was technically a non-meeting because counsel to the board
You're
was
closer to
present.
legal stuff than I am, man. I don't know.
that was the difference to me, was that this was our time to ask questions about personnel issues, other
Love the
non-public.
idea, right?
Yeah.
I love the idea. I'm just curious about how we do that legally and if that's kosher.
Yeah, I think we have legal
was.
counsel present
Yeah.
again, and we can get
Again,
into some of those issues.
Right. It wasn't conducting district business. It was more of a goal setting, discussion based. It wasn't, we weren't taking votes on
We didn't vote on
items that,
anything.
right.
Take votes on anything.
Yeah, I'm just sensitive to the whole quorum being
Yep.
together.
All
I
right.
think we did it on a 5th Wednesday. If I remember, there was a month that we had an extra Wednesday.
I think it might have been a third Wednesday, but
Oh,
because
third-
I think April 14th stands out in my mind.
Yeah.
and
Okay.
That tends to be more like a third.
I think we should do it sooner than later. I mean,
Absolutely.
I think this should be in the, if we can, and again, I know we have a lot of district business going on, but I think in the month of April for sure, if we can
If
swing
not
it.
sooner.
Yeah.
Well, and to remind the board, we're here on the 16th. The 23rd, we have a non-public session for some personnel matters that we need to deal with.
Yeah.
And on the 30th is the 5th Wednesday. So we could try to organize something. And it's really up to what the board directs. I mean, we can meet somewhere. We could come here. It's really up to the board to decide how you want to proceed on it.
Okay.
I would say the 30th or April 13th for that second.
Yeah. I'd rather get it done. I'd rather get it on the books sooner rather than later, personally. It's evident by tonight's meeting that we have a lot of issues to work through as a board, so that we can get on the same page and move forward.
April. So I'm writing
Okay.
down March 30th.
The
or
30th.
April 13th as possibilities. We'll see what we can arrange.
Is April 13th a facilities committee?
Maybe. But if that's at 3:30.
Is that Holy Thursday?
Oh, gosh.
No,
It's a Wednesday.
It might be Ash Wednesday.
No, Ash
No.
Wednesday.
No,
already did
Ash
that.
Wednesdays,
No. Okay, see, yeah.
already done.
So ignore me. My mom is a church secretary and be really mad at me right
No
now.
one's judging, no one's judging.
So April
She's not
13th, there would be a facilities meeting
She might
from 3:30 to 5:30. So we could meet at 6 o'clock, depending on.
Calendar's marked.
I just have to validate the PTO calendar with my wife, but
Let me hang on a second because I just offered you the 30th without looking at my calendar. I'm good. So the 30th is doable for us. Michelle and I will run with it. Sounds like you're all available.
Yeah.
Can we make sure it's a closed room?
Yeah, it
Like
was better
no
at the Puritan.
open?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that you, Tina? Like
Yeah.
there was echoing or something
Yeah, it
in
was
there.
really
Yeah.
hard to hear.
We're going to
Yeah.
work on
Backyard.
the location because that was not. We need somewhere that we can
Mhm.
Focus.
The
focus.
first one was good, I thought.
Yeah.
The first one was, we had 3, I thought. Didn't we have a third
Yeah,
one?
we had a board
Financial.
Yeah.
Yeah, goals, financial, and
Bargaining.
It was roles, collective bargaining.
bargaining. Yeah.
But when did we do the goals?
That was
we
that
That was
last
the
split.
first one.
We split that with the
The first or the
NHSBA.
second
Yeah,
one,
yeah,
both.
yeah.
Yep.
And then the financial retreat was in
Right.
September. And I would suggest that we keep a financial retreat in September
Mhm.
because that proved to be really effective getting the board's objectives. The board's marching orders to the administrative team was huge toward the work that we did in getting the budget developed.
Yeah.
So
I
I would
agree.
suggest that we stick with that.
Thank you for pulling that together.
So topic, is it about strategic planning and community engagement? Because we can zero in on that.
I think that's part of the discussion.
No,
I
it's
think
gonna be-
culture, school, I think
Yeah.
just overall culture, staff, students,
Community.
school,
Yep.
community. I think that's another hot button issue.
Let us do some work and see what we can do. Depending on how big it gets, we'll get it on the right date, either the 30th or 13th.
Okay. Next, are you all set with that, Mike?
I'm done.
All right.
Thank you.
So we'll invite Ms. Grantham up to give her principal's report.
Oh, as I drop the principals on the floor.
Send me-
I apologize.
Yeah.
Carpeted.
The
They're carpeted in there wrapped in bubble wrap, so it's good.
That's all right. I don't need to hear Jen. That's fine.
Is that the new
Here.
backpack?
This is the new backpack, the new safety backpack.
Can't miss that.
Wow, that's great. So, as you all know, I try to be brief in my principal's report, so hopefully I will be able to get you the information in a quick and concise manner. Our current enrollment, as you see, is 355 students at LMS. Our student council, I want to say thank you to the students who came and presented tonight. They did a fantastic job putting the whole presentation together on their own, and I couldn't be prouder of the student voice and hearing what they have to say and how they like to bring forward those concerns and issues and things that they want to have happen in LMS, and that's part of our goal. So congratulations to them and to Mr. Frazier. Thank you for coming and spending the evening this evening as well. I feel like oftentimes things get lost in an email, so I like to take this opportunity to also bring forward some other important things, and one of those things is our spring sports tryouts are coming up on March 28th. There is an online sign up available for our students in baseball, softball, and anyone interested can join track and field. So there are tryouts for the first two, and the third one is really anybody can participate. Dan DeForney, our gym teacher, is also our athletic director, and you can reach out to him via email, which is here listed on the report. So we have acknowledgements, again, acknowledging the student council for their hard work regarding reaching out to the community and supporting. This was a completely student-driven idea in regards to supporting the Litchfield Police and Fire. And it's because they see them as support and helpers, and they see them as someone who were there for them on the emergency day and were there to support them. So it was something that was important to them, and I want to commend them for that. We have also started a small committee of parents to kick off planning for Woohoo, the return of the traditional 8th grade grad dance. Thank you to those of you who joined on Monday night. We've got a great committee started. I think there were about 8 parents there on Monday evening to get some groundwork off, and our PTO is helping to support some ideas there. We have reserved the date, so save the date for 8th grade parents for June 3rd as our graduation dance at this point in time. If you are interested in participating, please reach out. If you weren't able to make the meeting on Monday night, please go ahead and reach out to me via email, and I will get you connected with the committee. The next piece of information is items of note. Boy, if I had had a crystal ball to see the future 2 months ago when we made the decision to cancel the Washington, D.C. trip, we would have had some different information on the plate. However, the decision was made, and we did have to.
Would it be back on at this point?
It's hard to say.
Yeah. Okay.
It's so hard to say because there's so many moving pieces. But in a happy news, we have been able to schedule some really exciting replacement trips for our students in 8th grade to get an opportunity to be together as a whole with all of our students. So in lieu of Washington, D.C., we're planning 4 days. We're going to be going up to the Wolfboro World War II Museum, which are first-person artifacts from New Hampshire World War II vets, which is pretty cool. We'll also take a cruise across the Mount Washington, across Winnipesaukee on the same day. We also have plans to take a trip up the Cog Railroad to the top of Mount Washington, visit the weather station where some of the harshest weather on the planet has been recorded right here in our own state of New Hampshire. And we are going to be taking a trip to the historical Isles of Shoals. And we were able to secure a trip to the Freedom Trail in the Boston Common. So some really great trips with some educational value for our students, in addition to being able to get out and about with one another and experience some things that kids who live right here in New Hampshire may not have experienced in the past. So
Those are phenomenal.
Yeah.
in talking to the 8th graders, they're really excited
Those
about
are all
it.
individual days, right?
They'll
Like
be looped
every
together.
Friday.
Right now, we're spanning a weekend to kind of give the adults and the kids a little bit of break. We thought if we put 4 days of field trips right in a row, I'm not sure all of us would have survived. So we are currently
Well, if you
spanning a
do this.
weekend. So it'll be right now. I have a Thursday,
So
Friday.
it still is a 4-day
Correct.
trip and staying overnight?
No
Or-
staying overnight.
Oh,
We're going to be coming
okay.
back. We're going to be coming back to Litchfield, but there'll be some of the days that are extended days because of the distance that we're traveling.
I see.
So we might
Okay.
be out until 5:30 or 6 o'clock
Yeah,
as opposed to
yeah.
getting out at 2:30. But it just gives us that opportunity to be together as a
good.
group, have everybody be able to
Great
participate.
substitute.
Our staff has been super supportive. Our students were really excited as we talked to them about what was coming. And I think, in a year where we look at sour grapes and sour apples, this is really a good thing. And we found a good apple in the bunch of the bushel there. So we're excited. We're also excited to say that sixth grade will be returning to Nature's Classroom.
Who's planning all this?
Which thing?
The 4 days. That's a lot of planning. Thank
is-
you.
I am
Congrats
planning-
to you. That is no small feat.
No, it is not, but it is worth it for the kids to be able to have that opportunity. So it is, and the team, the 8th grade team, and I look at Mr. Fraser, who is behind me, have been super supportive as we've kind of talked about what do we think about these things. But I've been back and forth via email and phone calls and making sure the buses are secured. But we've got it under control, and I think we're going to have a fantastic trip with our 8th graders.
I have to add, when Jen was my vice principal, she made a trip for students trips like this for students that couldn't go to DC. Maybe they couldn't afford it. Maybe they didn't want to be away from home, and they had just as good a time as some of the kids in DC. Jen's a professional at this stuff.
So we're excited. Thank you, Liz. We are also excited for our 6th graders to return to Nature's Classroom. They weren't able to go in the traditional September timeframe, but the energy and excitement coming from that neck of the woods in our school is awesome. The kids are looking forward to it. We have students who originally with COVID plans were not sure they'd be able to go, and Mrs. Sid has been amazing in reaching out. And I think we're down to only about 5 or 6 kids who at this point aren't comfortable with going, and that's perfectly okay. We have lots of opportunities for them to do other things in the building while the rest are gone to Nature's Classroom. But we're excited for that as well.
And equally as important, thank you to Mrs. Sid for her help in planning. I know that it's been a tremendous, I have a 6th grader, right? I have a tremendous amount of planning into that.
Her communication is phenomenal with the parents. She's willing to be on the phone
Direct
and
on
help.
point. She uppercases. It's great.
She does. Then the other thing is an item of note is I brought with me, your students may have discussed our emergency backpacks and a little bit of a change with the emergency backpacks. One of the things that we learned post December 17th was, how prepared are we? What are we ready for in case of an emergency? And one of the things that I think our staff did as an amazing task is we came back and we did a lot of debriefing and talking about what worked really well that day. I think the people worked amazingly that day. We obviously know there were some communication glitches that day and have made plans to fix those moving forward. And one of the things we looked at were the emergency bags that had been distributed. And as our staff, we brought them down to the cafeteria and we were going through and we found no 2 bags were alike. The contents were not the same. There were expired contents that expired like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago in some of those bags. So with our emergency management committee at LMS, we decided it was important to replace them. So what we did is we replaced every bag and also made sure everybody had one, because there were a lot of individuals who on that day we learned didn't have those emergency kits, and we wanted to make sure they could have them in their possession. So we made a list based off of national standards of things that should be in the bag. And we made sure that every bag has the same exact contents. We reused those things and repurposed those things that could be reused. And we bought new when we found they didn't have things that needed to be replaced. And then we also made the thing that everybody's carrying these with them no matter where they go, because emergencies can happen at any time and anywhere. So
there you go, Jen. Good job.
They're carrying it around with them. But it also makes it really great because when I need to find a teacher that's outside on a walk, it's awesome to see, because you just look and I go, where's the teacher? Oh, in the crowd, there they are. You can spot them with the bright green.
This is Grantham. Did you make sure we had a fire alarm last week during the cold weather, an unplanned fire alarm? And I gave out maybe 6 of my emergency blankets from my backpack. They don't have to be used if we're outside for a half an hour. Some of these kids don't have coats and it's 30 degrees out. Are there plenty of those blankets, those emergency blankets in there?
In each bag, they have 25 of the emergency
Oh, good.
blankets,
Nice.
so that
Excellent.
there's one for each child if
That's
they
funny.
should need it. There's
Yeah.
more than enough. We were able
lightweight.
to stock. My bag doesn't have 25 in it, but that's because I'm not usually with a class full of students. But
Excellent.
we determine based on who's usually with those teachers what they have in their bags. But
Fantastic. Thank you.
so that is our emergency backpack situation. And again, if you're seeing or hearing that they're out and about, it's not an emergency in place. It's just being ready in case one were to occur.
Just on that point, is this true throughout the 3 buildings?
Just gonna ask that question.
Or is it just LMS?
I'll have to double check. I mean, all the schools have emergency backpacks. I don't know if they have all updated in the same way. So our next emergency management meeting is the
First
beginning
Friday in April.
of
Consistency.
April. So we'll
Who's
get an
on that
update
one?
on that.
So Jen
Let's
can
talk
share
about
her
doing
checklist.
this. Okay, first
That's
Friday in
actually on the
April.
agenda, so.
Yeah.
We have in each of the bags as well laminated checklists and maps that have everything that's inside so that we can go back. If there were an emergency, they could say, hey, I used 6 blankets, I need replacements, or I need something
Nice.
different.
Pencil
we
and
have
paper.
Classroom rosters.
Yeah, it's student name list. Yeah.
Yep, student name lists. We also have the red and the green cards for the fire drill situation, so they
Awesome.
can quickly turn those around and they have them in their possession.
Awesome.
So I don't want to be redundant in my next piece because I feel like I was just here last week. Oh, wait, I was. So our teams of teachers have been doing an amazing job reviewing data in both iReady and current progress towards competency. Small group plans are being developed for how to meet our students' needs and help them best to progress forward. So these are ongoing conversations that we have each and every week in our PLCs in our building and designated plans and targeting that each student is making growth. It's not about just this specific group or just this specific group at the bottom or the top. We're looking at every student and hoping that we can find a way to help them all make that growth expected during the year. Next, I have listed some best of the best, some examples of some fantastic enrichment that's been offered through our BEST program. I think that is something I can say that we're really proud of as a school. We're proud of our students for their participation in the BEST programs. We're proud of our teachers for some of the things that they're putting together and thinking outside the box of areas of high interest for the students. I will tell you there have been paper airplanes flying down the hallway at school as they're studying the Bernoulli effect and discovering flight. And how many principals would you say, yeah, they could throw that one further. You didn't make it quite far enough down the hallway, but we're talking about, yeah, go ahead and throw those paper airplanes because the things that they're learning about the design and the structure and what the forces of air have on the planes as they're flying is pretty cool. Also, Mrs. Late has been working on a 1960s rock class where they're talking about the Who and Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Jimi Hendrix, and taking a stroll through the 1960s and explore the impact they had on music in the world. There's been vocabulary activities because we recognize vocabulary as a relative area of weakness for our students. So we have 7th grade, Mrs. Momney has been working on vocabulary games for students to help them build and enrich their vocabulary, communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and reasoning, which are those life skills that we're hoping our students are developing. Mr. Gamont in 8th grade has also started a debate club because what middle schooler do you know that doesn't like to argue? and learning how to do so in a polite and respectful manner is something that he's really doing an amazing job with and teaching them how to get their point across, but doing so respectfully and with confidence. We're also looking at a redesign of an amazing summer program to help our students who are in that tier 3 category, not the students who are attending ESY as part of the special education program, but looking at those students who maybe a year or 2 years below their current grade level as part of learning loss that happened with COVID. And other reasons. We have students that are significantly behind grade level expectations, and how can we support them to kind of close those gaps and not have the summer slide that happens with our students? So we're looking at targeting a great program that's going to offer reading, math, and fun for kids, because we're going to do a summer school that isn't just about come in because you're in trouble because you haven't finished your competencies. We're going to talk about come in, let's do something that's going to help build your skills to make you an even better seventh grader next year. You're coming from sixth grade. We want to make sure you have all those skills and you don't lose the skills you've gained all year. Keep them intact and move forward and be successful next year. We also, drum roll please, are anticipating the highly anticipated return of the middle school dance. And there was something weird, and change is hard for everybody, but something weird that I noticed as I came into principal role at LMS is that it was 6th, 7th, and 8th grade dance, and 5th grade was on the side. And I said, but they're part of our school. We need to have them be part of our school. So we are looking at doing something and separating a 5th, 6th grade dance and a 7th and 8th grade dance so that everybody that's at LMS is all part of our same school. And we're looking at those. You'll find details coming out soon. Our PTO and 6th grade are working at planning those two dances coming soon to a theater near you.
For me.
What was that?
So it begins for me.
And so it begins. The kids will be really excited and they'll come home mastering the cha-cha slide.
It's true.
True story. On March 24th, as we mentioned before, we are really excited to be welcoming our incoming LMS students. Believe it or not, we're already planning for next year and starting to look at what that's going to look like. So our current fourth graders who are down at GMS, we're going to have parents and students come up, get to take a tour of LMS, get to meet the 5th grade teachers because our team is going to be changing up a little bit because of the fantastic longtime service retirees that we've had in our school. So some of those shifts will be there. So they'll get to see who the teachers are that will be here for 5th grade for next year. Take a tour and just get to meet some of the staff. Construction, as Dr. Jetty mentioned, with our warrant article being approved. Thank you so much to the people of Litchfield to help us make sure that we're heated and have what we need to make our school a functional location. And adding those classrooms is going to be fantastic. And we'll be in constant communication with the Facilities Improvement Committee and Dr. Jetty on how that will happen. And finally, I have the COVID update, and I could not be happier to have absolutely nothing to tell you about COVID right now. Hooray. I put it in there because we've had the ongoing report, but I'm really glad that those numbers are continuing to stay small or non-existent. And I hope to be able to take that off my links in the loop on Friday because we're getting close, I think.
It's great news.
Yep. So that's great.
Good update. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just had one question about
Sorry, I'll move my glow in the dark
that's
bag off the table.
about Nature's Classroom, actually, since Miss Sid is retiring.
We have a succession plan.
I was wondering because I know
She's done it for 30 years or
Yeah.
something like
So
that.
long. It's
I
Yeah.
think she said 37
project.
years.
Yeah.
She's going to come back as a consultant. No, we joke with her that she still will want to have her involvement in, helping to support the next team. And because we do have a succession plan, Mrs. Corbett, and we had this conversation, is going to take it. She's going to be a 6th grade teacher next year, and she is going to take that on. And she's actually going to go for one of the days of Nature's Classroom so that she gets to see how it goes, see what happens there, and is ready to continue this long-standing important tradition as part of LMS.
Fantastic. That's good to hear.
Just really quickly on the same topic, and you may say we don't know yet. Has there been discussion about Nature's Classroom for next year? Are you waiting to see how it goes in terms of keeping it in the fall, keeping it in the spring?
So that is one of the conversations that the 6th grade current team is having, and then we will continue that conversation with the incoming 6th grade team because we have some retirees in that situation, so some movement. And there's two camps to that.
Sure, there's pros and cons of doing it at the beginning of the year and having those team building exercises early, but also
getting to know the kids and knowing who can be in the same bunk room and who can't be in the same bunk room. And so those conversations are underway. They've been great to include all of us in those conversations.
Great.
So we're getting the historical knowledge as well as being able to carry the important parts forward.
Perfect. Thank you.
And just before you wrap, and I know that we're coming to the end, right? I'd like to recognize the principals and the music staff for the concert last night. It was fantastic. There was a massive representation from the town, from the students. I couldn't be happier with how it went.
I wrote this up before I got to stand at the concert last night to say how wonderfully they all did. But, looking forward to those of you that are watching at home, don't forget there's another concert coming tomorrow at CHS for our LMS and CHS bands will be performing, as well as come up. And if you have a chance to see your students' artwork, it's amazing to see all the creativity that is displayed here in Litchfield. Pretty awesome. Thank you for moving my time up. I appreciate it. This is my third night this week, out a little bit later than normal. So yeah, my kids will be happy to see me.
Can I ask a question? And it's not to you, Jen. It's just in general. Several families from GMS and LMS would like to see their children's artwork at Campbell, and they're not sure when Campbell is open. I know it, so it will be open Thursday, and the doors usually are locked at 3:30, correct?
I believe the flyer said 5:30
On Thursday?
on Thursday. Yeah. Or there was a post on Facebook about it, I think from the Performing Arts Department or the Fine Arts. And I think they said 5:30.
Is when they're closing the doors or opening?
when
No, when they
doors?
open the doors.
Open.
Okay. Doors. Put that out there. Thank you.
Manifest.
All right. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
That brings us to school board comments. Andrew, you kind of stole my thunder. I was going to say the same thing about the music concert.
Well, I wanted to recognize Mr. Crentham was here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was a good sign that music is back in his building again. You know, we talked about having a rebuilding year, and the turnout last night was just incredible.
Was.
I think it was.
Bleachers were full.
I mean, it's been a while since I've attended a chorus concert for obvious reasons, and it was the gym was packed. It was.
I don't know why it was in the gym versus the auditorium, but I mean,
The gym is bigger.
just more
Capacity.
capacity.
More, yeah, we can fit more people
Mhm.
in there with that many kids in the GMS.
Just
chorus.
moving all that setup, right?
Yeah.
From anyway, I have a number of things to talk about during school board, which is why I made the motion once I was watching the time there. And I'll start with the easy one first. Can you hear me, Liz?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. So one of the things that I just want to ask a question, is there an all district employee survey that goes out? Like an anonymous survey that we're sending to the staff that is just a pulse on how things are going, and that information is fed back up to the superintendent and to the board. Does that happen?
So throughout COVID, we did multiple surveys, parents, students, et cetera.
And staff.
And
Yeah, I'm saying
yeah.
just staff. Yeah.
And staff. I mean, but they were all individual surveys, right? So there was a parent survey separate.
Okay.
The other survey that is done is the Bright Future Survey that just got released by the Department of Ed. So that's another survey that is administered to the community, to staff, and to parents separately. And so that was done for the first time last year and is just now coming out. So you haven't seen the links to it yet because it was unembargoed Monday. So that will be forthcoming in the next.
So is that an annual process? Is that how that works?
Seems to
Or-
be. I think DOE has done a couple of things. There's a parent engagement survey that is specifically for special needs students, families. So you take the parent survey and then it says, is your child, does your child have an IEP? And if you click yes, then it populates with a bunch of other questions that are also collected annually. So that is one comprehensive survey. All surveys, anytime we do a survey, they are anonymous.
Okay.
We have struggled with people being concerned that they're not anonymous,
Right.
but they're Google Docs. It tells you if it's collecting emails or not collecting emails. So, and what I mean by that is I'm going to send a parent engagement opportunity tomorrow morning for the principal search on Monday to all Campbell High School families. And that won't be anonymous because you need to sign up if you want to participate. So we know that you're coming, we can plan on the amount of pizza to have, et cetera. So we do ask people then to fill out, but it tells you it's collecting your email addresses. So even though the other surveys are anonymous, some folks have been reluctant to fill them out because they feel that it's not.
Yep.
That's been a struggle.
Is that as far as staff too?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Are we on school board comments? Is that what we're?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, I guess I would just like to take a pulse and have a benchmark, right? Satisfaction, all the standard questions you would ask. And that way the board has a measure of how we're doing. Are we hearing what the employees are saying? Are we moving the needle in terms of culture, in terms of environment? I think that a day one survey soon would be great. And then a 6-month survey and a year survey.
Thank you.
I don't know what the other board members' thoughts are, but for me, I think that would be helpful.
We have done that.
Standard questions, nothing out of the ordinary, right? I don't know.
Yep.
Thoughts?
I wonder if there's a way to do it.
I mean, Survey Monkey is used. It's free.
Well, that's what I was.
You know what
I'm
I mean?
wondering if there's a way to do it not using necessarily Google, only because I think there's concern that somehow a Google name gets attached to a survey, even when
Agree.
that's not happening. But there's a concern out there. I think we're more likely to have a honest feedback if it's from another vendor besides the Google platform.
My suggestion would be that we look at the Bright Futures, because that's Panorama. It's independent of us. It has nothing to do with us. The results don't come to us. We get summary reports from it. I will tell you I believe last year the NEA had said not to participate. They had urged members not to participate in that survey because they didn't trust what the DOE was going to do with the data. So that was another, we have the results, but I don't have them at hand, but,
We can't trust the accuracy.
and so it just becomes, no matter, that was an independent third party arm's length, but it was done by the DOE and there was a trust factor there. So it's just something that, if
Something
we
we
find
need to
something
build back.
independent.
The spirit of the conversation for tonight is certainly just to get a benchmark, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to take a
I
pulse
agree.
of how everyone's doing. What can we do to make it better? To be an employer of choice. You know what I mean? I don't know.
So I can tell you my first year, we got away from this because of COVID. Things just got bizarre with the pandemic. I had done a survey of all constituents. I did parents, I did staff, and to give me feedback. And I'm pretty sure I walked in with the raw data to say, this is what people said about my
reviewed it.
performance in that first year. And so, but again, the second year, we were so heavy into
Surveys on, we did surveys in
They were
other
done.
areas. Yeah, it was COVID
Yeah.
related.
And the board had advised not to do it that year because they just felt like we were surveyed
Too
out
much.
because that was March of 20.
And I
right?
can appreciate that.
Yeah.
And
You
so
do too many and
A
nobody
lot of,
responds.
a lot of the things that you're saying, I absolutely agree with because, they've been on the docket, but COVID, the past 2 years, because of COVID, our focus has been on keeping kids in school and it's a good reminder to come back and pick those things up again.
Yeah, cool.
I fully support it. My company does annual, it's called engagement surveys. And really the goals that are set during that are participation goals to get 100% feedback,
Right.
To
Right.
eliminate that trust factor in taking the survey. But then each area takes, if there's over 5 respondents, each area of responsibility actually gets to see their results, and then they plan what they can do with those.
Optional text, 1 through 5 scale for the questions. If they want to enter something, great.
Yeah. So we could absolutely get something developed. We can find a way to do it. Whether we want to push it out or have somebody else do it. The one thing I would just ask is, I know you say standard questions, but
Where are the standard questions?
yeah,
right?
your definition of standard may differ from
I can
mine.
get a sample of questions and just to throw it out there as an idea.
Yeah.
Cool.
Great.
Well, I also, just throwing this out there, I say this respectfully, but I think it coming from the board versus coming from you may result or may be perceived differently. So I wonder if we should put the survey out as the board, but I don't know how you feel about that. But it's something to think about.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, we also have to consider there'll be a new principal, at CHS, so that will be just for this year, and then we'll need to reassess once the new principal has a few months under his belt.
Or her belt.
Her belt, sorry, oops.
Okay. So it sounds like we're in agreement on that for the most part. I will gladly just send some sample questions that I think of to the board and to the superintendent.
Great.
Article 6 conversation. So as mentioned, and congratulations on getting that passed again. My view has always been a yes vote on that's better than a no vote. So I am glad to see that passed. However, interested on kind of the direction here. Like the budget, I view this as a bottom line number. So the voters approved 4.95 million. We need to spend it all, right? But with that, I do think it's worthwhile given kind of the excitement, I'll say, over the past month, 2 months of HVAC and everything else, to take a look at that before we spend the money, invite Mr. Clarity here to present to the board and make sure we're making a really educated and informed decision, because I can tell you there's a tremendous amount of doubt in what's being planned as a part of that number. And if there is an opportunity to get a system that meets the needs for less dollars, then it's a win-win. I don't know.
So
Here or to the experts that we've hired, you know what I mean? Because like I'm not an expert in this.
I think it's both. I think we hear it, but also have the experts that you've been working with here as well, so we can hear both sides of the story and make an educated decision.
So here's how we're proceeding ahead now, or what the plan is, and the board can direct us. Tomorrow is the LMS project kickoff meeting.
Phase two
Yeah. Kickoff. So that will involve North Branch Construction. So Joe Campbell will be in the meeting. Dave Healy, who is the architect of record, will be in the meeting. Andy Arsenault and Ryan Lacey, who are the HVAC professional engineers, will be in the meeting. Dick Henry, who is the energy consultant who has been advising us, will be in the meeting. I believe Kay Aiken, who is the engineer designing the solar aspect, will be in the meeting. And the purpose is to lay out like what does it even look like? You know, what are the phases? Where are we with each aspect of the design, prints, et cetera? Just so that we can all make sure we know exactly where we sit on it.
Our sorry to interrupt, our preliminary discussion with Joe Campbell is because of supply chain and some of those factors, that even though this is phase two, but phase two might have to be kind of phased as well, because we don't know what the time frame is going to be in ordering that. If we're planning to get anything done over the summer, orders got to go out now, because like equipment, those things are going to be hard to find. We don't want to prolong this thing to the point where costs are going to drive up even more than they already have in the initial stages of the planning of it. So
Understood.
I think
Cost and timeline wasn't, I mean, part of the reason of getting it, you know, getting it through was
with the
it's gonna
affirmative
just
vote,
take longer.
we have the authorization to move forward. So we'll see where a couple things happen today, and it's part of my report as well, but I'll just bring it in here. We had the kickoff meeting for the municipal lease. Closing on that's going to be April 20th. We're anticipating in 3 weeks to have the GMP. So in terms of
GMP,
guaranteed
maximum price. So in terms of, you know, making adjustments, this is the 11th hour at this point, because if you start making major design changes at this point, we were hoping to have like a 3 to 6 month project. It's now looking like a probably 8 to 12 month project. So making changes this late would be very difficult.
I understand the hesitation. I don't have confidence in some of what's in that number. As I said, right? Like as an example, during the budget meetings, I don't think solar is the right thing for the school. I don't. It's up to the board, I guess, to make that decision. I know that's certainly part of the plan, but how great would it be if we said, you know, out of the 4.95 million to the taxpayers next year, we only spent 3 million of it, right? Because we want to focus, we want to recognize that there was investment needed. We did take the necessary actions. We found a way to tighten our belts. And oh, by the way, you know, we're going to be fiscally responsible with you. Should we put forth a new building for
Yeah, I definitely see that. I think the piece that I have trouble with is that's the plan that we presented to the voters and that the voters approved. And I would be.
That's the other side of it, right? And that's why I don't know the right answer, and
Right.
It depends how you look at it.
So after the kickoff meeting with the the design team, I should call it, the next thing is to bring everybody forward to the facilities improvement meeting next week and to explain what phasing we've developed and so forth. And I think the right place to have a discussion about that might be at that meeting, because then the folks who are representing are there. I can just tell you, as soon as you say not doing the solar, the whole project unravels if you don't do the solar, because it's not just are we spending toward the solar array, it's the energy savings that get squeezed out that produce the ability to do all the other things. You are fundamentally changing that if you say don't do the solar, because the solar pays for the work that's getting done.
Right.
So if you don't do the solar, it doesn't mean you still can't do other aspects, but the HVAC system alone, like you said, $3 million, the HVAC is pretty steep in that. What about renovating the locker rooms, which to me is step one? Like I want to say, rip apart those locker rooms now. On opening day, we should have 2 classrooms because there's going to be enough other disruption. We should have 2 fresh, clean, ready to go classrooms by the first day if we can make that happen.
I'm fine with that. Right? I'm fine with the kitchen. I'm fine with the insulation work that needs to go around the ceiling. Like that's cool.
But that was paid for by the solar savings.
Right.
So it's just all these pieces. It just causes me to pause like, gosh, that's a big unravel. The other piece is that the energy savings, not having oil, not spending money on the oil tank and the boilers, that also comes into bear on what we're able to accomplish. So I hear you on it. I mean, I've had Mr. Clarity and I have talked multiple times. I've answered the questions. There's just a fundamental disagreement about the project. We addressed, we added extra heating elements in for about $100,000 in expense, but we added them in to ensure that we didn't have egg on our face. The engineers are saying to us, this is wasted money. You don't need to do this. He doesn't understand the system that we've designed. And I said, spend it anyway, because I don't want to be sitting here saying, whoops, he's called us out on it. We should put the element in just to make sure that there is that redundancy.
Yeah.
So, we were responsive to concerns that we heard, but unraveling the solar is, that would unravel the project.
And that's
There's a lot of pieces to redesign where, Joe Campbell's already spent the time bidding out the subcontractors.
Right.
That piece is already done. And, you go back, now you're adding months and you haven't ordered like the
I appreciate the level of effort, but at the same time, my thought is, well, if it means doing what's right to the taxpayer, right, and having confidence in the design, which I don't necessarily, I have confidence in some of it, not all of it, right? But that would, that extension of time would be well worth it.
So I understand what you're saying, but I think the taxpayer has given a vote of confidence into the current plan, which includes the solar, and which Mr. Clarity's concerns were addressed repeatedly through different videos. So I'm not sure. I guess that's my issue with it, is that the voters have, despite the concerns that were raised, the majority of voters have said green light for this project. And so to fundamentally change the project now, I have concerns about that.
My view on that is it's a green light to the number, not to all the work behind that number, right? And that's the debate. It's the same thing with the operating budget, right? It's the same conversation.
Yeah.
Anyway, just something I'm thinking about. If we're not making decisions, starting to write $4 million checks.
Knowledge of engineering, of plumbing, to get involved in the GMS process, so they can be heard prior to the last minute questions and comments.
Absolutely. And I think that's why community outreach on that project is going to be key.
And why we want to broadcast, because
Right.
I think you have 2 agenda items on every facility improvement committee meeting between now and this time next year. And it's update on LMS. So you get a progress check-in, and then you get GMS planning.
And those videos are recorded and streamed on
and-
YouTube and LCTV, so everybody can be a part of the process from the beginning.
And I will tell you, we met with the architect for the GMS project, and holy smokes, buckle your seatbelt. The timeline that we have ahead of us to have a successful warrant article in March of 23, there is so much to do. The letter of intent that was due January 1st, easy peasy. What's due July 1st to get the money is deep. I mean, the amount of planning that has to be done is phenomenal.
The amount of work that needs to go in for money that it's pretty, we're very likely not going to be eligible for building aid, but the amount of work that goes in to apply for it
We have
is
to apply for it.
significant.
So I'm worried that we're going to take up all this time on GMS and not stick with, we spend a lot of time on LMS. I want to get back into the schools and concentrate on the schools that we have. Do we have somebody that can take charge of this process other than you, Dr. Jetty?
What process are you? I don't.
You
I
got me
guess-
confused by that.
Yeah. I guess I don't know what process you mean. The facilities committee?
Did you hear what I said? Do you understand what I said? Sorry.
The project, and it's not, it's for Mike and myself to be key on these teams is not a unique thing to the Litchfield School District. It's when you build a new school, the superintendent's very, very involved. And I think Mike wants to be very involved in it because it's an important piece of what we're working on.
Right. We have 2 board members on that committee, and we have a select board representative and a budget committee representative. So,
Well, and in addition to that meeting, we had an energy project meeting every Monday for an hour and a half that board members participated in. And we had a GMS planning meeting. So, there's that sort of, we take it to the larger group, but there was a lot of work done in those work sessions too. So there were several meetings that.
I understand that, but I want to see you in schools. I'll be completely honest. We have stuff going on in our schools that need to be addressed as well. And I don't want you to be all caught up in doing the GMS thing.
I think other districts, don't they have somebody on staff to manage this type of project?
No, you would hire a clerk of the works,
So,
which is another paid consultant. But I mean, technically, when it comes to the project tracking, I mean, I'm going to handle a lot of that on my end. And we have Dave Ely as well, who's watching a bunch of stuff. So I think to bring another person in at this, it's an added expense that I don't believe is necessary. We're already paying good money to consultants that we trust, that we've been working with for 30 years.
Yeah, Mike, you have so much on your plate that it just seems, I don't know. That's just my thought.
there are a lot of spinning plates in running a district. So,
Sure.
yeah.
Small district, small
I mean,
office.
Yeah.
I'm not quick to refuse the help if that's something that the board wants to approve, but I've been through major renovation projects as a principal, and the district did hire a retired superintendent who was the project coordinator and did that work. Somebody who had experience, been through it. That's all they did. They were like
That's what they
project
did
manager.
at the CTE Center in Hudson.
It does happen.
For
But
GMS, we have David Ely, who's signed on at GMS as the owner's project representative. So that's a contract between us and him. And, if we need to lean on him, we will.
yes,
I mean, that's.
I don't expect you not to be involved at all.
Yeah. Okay. Andrew, did you have anything else for school board comments?
Yes.
Can we pick up the pace a little bit?
Happy
We're already
to.
2 hours past our.
Is there a
agenda
social
time.
strategy in place for this board?
What do you mean by
what?
social strategy?
Social strategy, like a mechanism or a board approval mechanism for Facebook posts and just socially posting information about what the board's working on, our meeting rhythm, what was discussed.
I think the intent is to discuss that at our retreat.
Okay.
So that we
I
do
mean,
have.
Would be part of.
You're familiar
Yeah.
with the budget committee, right? And a few years ago where we implemented
Mhm.
this, I guess it's technically called a social archivist, right? Where we
Right.
put together a quick summary of what we talked about
Yep.
and a few bullets. You've all seen them on What's Up, right?
That's what I want.
That is well received. And I think having that as a part of the school board
Yep.
makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, and that's
Yes.
that's a good topic to add to our agenda.
Okay. Now, the
Who
next.
does that? By
well,
the way,
that needs to be.
from the budget committee. Is it somebody from the budget committee,
Yes.
or is it a?
I did it for many years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Because
Just curious.
Tara speaks for us on the
Look.
school board. You're on the school board page, right?
But it's not consistent. I mean,
No,
it's
between teen, we're still splitting it. You
Yeah.
know,
it's basically, oh yeah, I've got to do that.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I
yeah.
think
It's an assigned task.
right?
Right.
It needs
And
to
I
be like a
I would
committee
love
assignment.
to do that. I would love to do that position.
okay.
You already have a volunteer. But
There you
it
go.
sounds like
Talk
that's a
about that at the
conversation for
retreat.
the
Yeah,
retreat.
let's discuss it at our retreat and
Yep.
make that an assignment and part of our routine.
Okay. Next up, resident issues. So as mentioned during correspondence, I did receive some resident issues direct to me. Not knowing process, I'd like to be able to share them with the board so everyone's familiar with what was discussed or what was noted to me. One, there was, and all of these are anonymous per the request.
Okay.
Okay.
Is this I just want to be cognizant of the process that we have for sharing resident concerns that, people that go to a board
Did
member.
they ask for them to be shared publicly?
Well, that's the conversation. The answer is no, but as a board member, I received calls
Communication.
and communications from concerned residents about school issues.
Absolutely. So my advice would be, like Tara said earlier, is to respond to those people individually and say, I mean, the law is we can't respond to a member of the community as a representative of the board because the board can only speak and make decisions at a public meeting.
Agree.
So I
But-
would,
Which is why I'm trying to bring it up.
right, I know.
But you know what,
I know.
Andrew, when something like that happened, I'd say, well, I don't understand why the doors at CHS close at 5:30. And I use that as my comment instead of what people tell me on the soccer field or whatever. Because I'm interested in the answer as well. So
Yeah.
it's
So,
my
Madam Chair, if you can
comment, and I
direct me
don't
as to what to
say
do.
it's
I
somebody
was about
else's.
to.
Okay.
So what I would say is reply to those people and say, you know, in order for the board to discuss this, it needs to be sent to the entire board. Your concern needs to be addressed to the board.
Okay.
Does that seem consistent with our policy?
I don't like the policy, but if that's consistent, well, I mean, that's another conversation.
But part of that is,
Well, that's consistent, but I also think if you want to say, I have a concern about X issue and it's
Yeah.
your concern,
Right.
you
Share
can
that
bring it
concern, you
forward
absolutely
during
can.
school board comments. So if it's,
That's how I do it.
Right. People
Some
have
of these
asked
I
me
don't know enough about, right, to be
Right.
to say or have an
You
articulate
direct them to who,
have an
right? You-
articulate
yeah,
conversation
like,
at a
that's what I
board
do.
meeting.
When
You
people,
know what I mean?
when people email me, you know, if it's something I don't have the answer to, I will either find out the answer. If it's a question, you know, I'll either find out the answer or, you know, I can direct them to who's
Right
the direct.
person.
Part of
Right.
what we're trying to do is get people to go to the direct source. If it's an issue with a teacher, go to the teacher. If it's an issue with somebody else, go to them directly. The
Chain of
school board
command.
is the
Right.
last resort, really, for people who aren't getting their problems resolved.
I hear you. And I think what I'm hearing is that the people don't feel heard at all, right? And there's no other mechanism for a voice. Being newly elected, new member, first, maybe that's why they're reaching out. I don't know.
I guess my concern is, are these people that have reached out to the board?
Can't say that. I don't know.
That, I mean, you don't know, or I don't know, but
Invite them to reach out to the board. I mean, that's
Yeah.
all we can say, you know?
I think it's worth revisiting whatever
The policy.
one of the 271 policies are.
DEDH, we just did it.
yeah.
Okay.
Just revised.
So Andrew, do you have any questions or concerns?
Clearly.
Right.
Well, there's several others that I'd like to talk about, so we'll table that for now. And I'd like to. What's the policy number?
BEDH.
Got it.
There's also a complaint policy that specifically talks about board members redirecting. You know, and if I just may, on the not being heard thing, I return every phone call. I get back to emails. People are heard. We don't always agree at the end. I don't always do what I've been told, right? Or directed by somebody. But they're heard.
I don't know that they were directed to you though, right? I don't know that.
No, but if they are directed to me, if it gets to my desk, I do respond. I have to trust that my principals are also responding, and I have to trust that our teachers are responding. And frankly, if somebody's not getting the response at the teacher level, you then go to the principal level. So by the time it's getting to me, it should be at a third level, depending on exactly what the concern is. You know, I have in my packet to do, a parent had posted a comment on Facebook today. It came across my desk. I looked the parent up. The parent has a child in all 3 schools, so I don't know where to direct it because I don't know exactly how to zero in on it. I'm calling the parent and I'm going to say, how can I help you get some resolution to this? Because I just don't know where to send it. It then led to a series of staff members chiming in with opinions on it. And that's another piece that I need to do a follow-up on because so we have this whole social media piece that was brought to my attention. I'm going to follow up on that. I'm going to do my best to, okay, how do we help out with this? So we do take that action. So when I hear that they haven't been heard, I do scratch my head a little bit.
And I just, again, I'm not pointing fingers at all.
No, absolutely not. Yep.
All right. So moving on, a couple of other things that I'll just generally bucket under board governance, right? And I think one of the things that's crystal clear to me sitting here tonight in this room in the setup is how materially different it is from every other board in town, right? Just as an example, you know, the SAU is on the front table, right? This should be the board, 100%, right? The SAU is reporting into the board, right? The board should be governed and sitting united at the front with the SAU reporting. That's a change I'd like to see. Secondly, Michelle, I know you have a lot of history in this town. I'm not debating that at all, and it is worthwhile. But I think the board needs to focus on board activities, and that background that you have should be shared after the meeting and not during the meeting. That's my opinion.
I believe the seat move is on our agenda for the retreat.
Okay. In addition to that, what I'd like to see happen within the schools is skip level meetings. Very common in business. I don't know that it happens here. You tell me.
Say it again. What is
A
it?
skip level meeting. So the board would directly meet with principals without the superintendent. We'd meet with the LEA. We'd meet with the LSSA directly without the superintendent and get kind of, for lack of a better term, voice of customer, right? Voice of our employees, just to drive and continue to drive employee satisfaction. I think that will go a long way in terms of building rapport and trust with the school and the teachers.
I don't feel comfortable with that myself, but we could talk about it.
Yeah, again, I'm bringing up ideas. I'm bringing up
Yep.
things that I'm observing and things that I think would make a lot of sense. But it's up to the board to decide.
Think about that as well.
Yep.
But
We can absolutely have that discussion.
Is Tina talking?
No, go ahead.
Can you add that to the agenda too for our retreat?
I think Mike just wrote it down.
I'm
perfect.
taking
Great.
notes on everything I'm hearing. So
I'm
Excellent.
a little concerned. The superintendent pulled out a binder and is writing. I'm kidding.
All right. Anything else, Andrew?
I think that's. Oh yeah, one other thing. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. One of the things, and I don't have specific examples, but what I can say as a budget committee, this didn't happen. It seems to me, it's apparent to me that there's a lot of behind the scenes text messages within this board about communications about board topics. If that's happening, I'd like to remind everybody that that should stop immediately. Right? I understand it may not be a quorum. Maybe it is a quorum through a text message. I don't know, but I'm getting the sense that there's a lot of text communications, and I'm requesting that this board stop that and we talk about it as a board. That's it.
Okay.
I will tell you that there are times that I text the board. We always disclose it when we've done that. And, there are just times where I need to get a pulse. I need to figure out, like, we're in a crunch. We need to get that. So that does occur at times, but it's always been disclosed.
It's different with the superintendent if there's an emergency,
Right.
right? I'm talking about texts amongst board members.
But there have also been times when we've needed to schedule an emergency meeting and we say who's available. I mean, there are venues for that, and there are RSAs and there are recommendations in our policies that address that directly.
If it's happening, I would like it to stop. And we
As
should
long
be
as it's
talking
not a
about-
quorum.
We should be talking about board specific items in the board meeting. So
Thank you. Any other school board comments?
I just wanted to briefly give a shout out to Campbell High School and the Challenge Day days that have occurred this week. My freshman was lucky enough to be able to sprint from class today when there happened to be 10 open spots and get into it. And she came home absolutely raving about it. She said that they cried, they hugged, there was just a lot of emotion, and she feels she didn't know anybody in her group. They were upperclassmen, and she feels more tied to the CHS community because of it. And so I think I would love to see this happen more, maybe not as formally as 3 challenge days in a row, but that peer-to-peer or that small group, whatever it is, because a lot of that has been lost with COVID. But as a freshman who, she went to obviously identifies as a CHS student, but this went a huge, long way in helping her to feel much more a part of that. And so I loved hearing about it, and I just wanted to, I know Mr. Perez was hugely involved with that. I think all of the administrators, Ms. Nelson, Mr. Lonigan, were involved in it to some extent. I think actually Mr. Knight was her facility person for her group. So again, just a huge thank you to everybody. It's a lot of time. I think it was a lot of work to plan these days, but so critically important when there are, and you're reading about these social, emotional, and mental health issues happening on a daily basis with our students, and not just our students, but students across the country. And I think this went a long way in helping people.
Yeah.
So
I think this is on a 3-year cycle, Heidi, because I've been part of Challenge Day 3 times, and now it's on a 3-year cycle. And I like to continue that because every time it seems to be a battle to get the program back in the school. So I'm glad your daughter had
I was able to attend it today. Again, you stole my thunder. And actually, in addition to the building admins, Nick Carrigan, who's a senior, and Anthony Holder, who is another senior, they experienced Challenge Day as freshmen 4 years ago, and were so transformed by the experience. And not just, it's not about being woke, but they made those connections like you talked about, and it was so helpful to those kids to see and hear other students around them and drop the judgment and drop the, it was just a really eye-opening event where kids shared as much as they wanted to share, and it was a safe space, and everybody was supportive of each other. And, by the end of the day, we were all emotionally drained, but also it was very hopeful and optimistic in like you said, we hear about all these the gaps in social emotional learning and how these kids have suffered over the past 2 years with this pandemic. And I think we took, in these 3 days, we took a huge step forward in supporting our kids and showing them that how important it is for them to support each other. That they're not in their struggles alone, that they have same experiences as somebody else they might not have thought. It was very impactful.
I don't know a lot about Challenge Day, but that's one of the things that came across my radar. And I understand it's an opt-in type of program.
Yep.
Is
Optional.
it just a question? Is it students that opt in, or is it parents that opt in?
Students.
both. Well, students
Yeah,
and
parents are notified that their child would be participating. So
I don't know if that happened. Again, Grace was an add-on today. They had 10 extra slots.
Right.
Yeah.
Mike
my
did
kids
say he
got
had a number of students opt out, and that was fine.
Yeah, I just want to make sure parents are aware, right? And if it's just student opt-in, is it?
There
an
was a
email
full
from Mr.
parent
Perez
email.
that went out
Yep.
saying, if you don't want your child to participate,
Let us know.
So anybody opting in, he had not heard from. So you may not have been notified that day, but you had already had an opportunity to.
Sure.
Right. There was a blanket email that went out saying Challenge Day is
That's what
coming.
I thought. I
Yeah.
just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure.
And then you got another one, I think, if your child, was registered and signed.
Yeah.
They, it's very purposeful the way the students are selected too, to make sure it's a very balanced group.
Being selected if they opt in.
They do opt in,
But they're small groups.
but they're in small groups.
Oh,
So
they're broken up into.
yeah.
So it's
yeah,
not just them and their friends in a group.
It's not they're not in the auditorium just doing this together,
Right.
right. It's in the gym actually, and
but in
It's very
cohorts,
structured.
I'll say.
in cohorts.
Small.
Yeah. And it's a
I think we had 14 or 15 groups. So there were 14 or 15 adults facilitating small family groups is what they call
Like a
them
group of
within-
5 kids.
within Challenge Day.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity a couple years ago to participate in it, and I had the opportunity again to participate yesterday.
Mhm.
And it was really, really nice. The first time we did it, we actually purchased a day from a neighboring district that they had an extra day they weren't going to fill, so we took it on. But it was nice to see a greater population of students, because really the goal of it is, to simplify it, the goal is empathy. Like to walk in someone else's shoes and hear what other people go through, because you don't always realize what's going on in other people's lives. And the fact that students go in there and actively engage in it and take it very, very seriously, I think it's a great program.
Yeah, the amount of kindness, honesty, and just respect and support for each other that I saw isn't something that you would see just walking into a building, walking through the halls. And they try to get as large a cross section of students as possible, because then these kids become leaders and influence their friends and their peer groups. So I thought it was a really great. I'd never done it before, but my daughter spoke very highly of it, and I think it's definitely a program that that we should keep?
Just full disclosure for the board. So Mr. Perez is coming back. He's coming to the next meeting. It's
We
Campbell's
stole his
meeting.
thunder.
He's going to do a debrief on Challenge Day. So you'll get a summary report. I think there's a survey they do as a part of it. You'll get that summary data from the students. I encourage him to bring students to come and speak to their experience, because I think it's more powerful even coming from the students who did it. So you can anticipate that at the next board meeting. I will also tell you, I had several members of the community who reached out to me because the other night in a select board meeting, Representative LaSalle took a phone call on live TV from the commissioner and said, I'm calling because I have concerns about our school doing Challenge Day. And so the next day, that was live, as people sent me the video, right? So the next day, I called the commissioner and I said, help me understand. I've reached out to Mr. LaSalle. I have not received a call back as of now. I'm hoping to get one because I want to understand what the concerns are. There was an article that I'll share with the board that he sent to Mr. Perez, and I was copied on that. So I'll share the article so that you can see what I think caused his concerns. I'm guessing, I don't know, I haven't talked to him, but and so, there are concerns that are out there relative to Challenge Day, and I just want the board to be aware that we are responsive to those concerns.
The articles that I've seen, again, not knowing anything about this, but just Googling Challenge Day, you'll get a number of articles, right? A number of opinion pieces, I'll say. And a lot of the opinion pieces are, this is very leftist. It's very meant to drive emotion within students. And it's essentially, for lack of a better term, brainwashing your kids to have certain thoughts and beliefs. I don't know if that's true or not. That's what the opinion articles.
I understand
indicate.
that concern from after having participated in it. That is not at all what I saw today. Not
It was
at
really
all.
just all about acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
That was the fundamental thing for me.
Yep.
Just like everybody comes from a different place.
Mm-hmm.
Did you do it, Tara?
Yeah, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I guess it was 4 years ago.
A good critical thinking piece might be to share that article with student participants and say, here's that article. I read one,
Right.
I won't say multiple, but here's an article and an opinion piece. What would your opinion piece look like? And I'd just be curious to see what writing might be prompted by that.
Or if there's a survey to go out to this.
Well, they've done a survey.
There is.
But to
They
those that
did,
just
recently.
went through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've done a survey, but I
Okay.
think, I just think that it's a way of just saying, hey, here's what some in the community have said. So what do you think? You lived it. You went through it.
I'm hung up on, I'm sorry. So there was a concern in the community, but it wasn't brought to you and it was brought to the commissioner. Did I hear that right?
It was brought to Mr. Perez.
Okay.
He responded to it,
Okay.
and then it was brought to the commissioner. And I called the commissioner to say, help me understand how this is a matter for the Department of Education.
But there
What
was
did
a
he
call
say,
on
Edelblut?
TV
What did
during a
Edelblut
selectman
say?
meeting?
Called during the select board meeting by one of our
The commissioner was
representatives
calling back.
who had concerns about Challenge Day.
So the commissioner was calling our selectman / representative.
The phone rings and he answers it and says, and he announces to everybody, that was Frank Edelblut, the Commissioner of Education. And he said, you can watch it yourself. He said, I have concerns. Our high school is doing Challenge Day.
Right.
And so,
But those concerns weren't brought to you
correct.
or to the board
Correct.
before
Correct.
the commissioner was contacted.
The commissioner's saying he has concerns?
No.
No.
No, what did
He
Frank
was
say?
reiterating what that other
Edelblut.
person was saying.
The
Okay, got it.
commissioner and I have a good working relationship. I said to him that, he said, I don't know a lot about Challenge Day. I don't know how to help. He said, I would just encourage you to be clear and transparent and answer questions. And I said, I will reach out to Mr. LaSalle and I will do exactly what you're suggesting that I do. He called me back in the afternoon after he had connected because I talked to him beforehand. So we just had a good dialogue back and forth, and I'm following through on what I was asked to do.
Wow. Okay.
Fair enough.
I just want to clarify.
We're just wrapping up school board still, right?
Yeah, that was my school board comment.
Yeah, sorry, that,
I actually thought of one other thing. It actually happened at your March 7th meeting. I do think it's worthy of just a quick address, right? After reviewing the policies out there, there's a policy on superintendent evaluation that just says it's going to happen. If I read it right, it's going to happen after the June end of year, right? And that's the board policy. So was there a waiver to that policy to have it done on March 7th? Why wasn't it done last year?
Contract.
right, when Mike was brought on board, and actually it might have been before that time, I wasn't vice chair before then. So the vice chair is the one who coordinates the superintendent's review. I wasn't really paying attention, but the board decided that it made more sense for the current board who's been working with the superintendent for the full school year or the year starting in July to evaluate before there's any changes to the board. That way someone's not coming in new and participating in the superintendent's evaluation, not having.
That's what Mike's contract says.
And Mike's, yeah,
February
so in his
15th.
contract.
So
it
we have a
says-
policy that doesn't align to the contract.
So to clarify, we do not.
I think.
What you saw was an outdated policy with a mislink. Click it again. The policy approved in 21 says it took all the references to June or whatever. It just says there'll be an annual written eval. It's coordinated by the vice chair. My contract says it will be done by February 15th.
Okay.
So we're absolutely.
You're still after that, right? It's still after
We
February
are still
15th.
after that because the feedback process that we utilized
Took longer.
took
That's
longer
fine,
than
but
we
then there
thought.
should be an official waiver of the policy by the board to do that.
But the policy doesn't have
Have
a
a
date
date.
in it. It's his
Right.
contract that has a date in it. So what I think
thought-
you're
sorry.
saying is the policy was amended in 2021.
Policy contains no dates. The
I'm sorry,
June-
I just heard February 15th.
Yeah, so the June
That's
piece
in
is
the-
not in the policy
That's his
any longer.
contract.
My contract says by February 15th,
I see.
and I was working with the board on it and
And
was
you-
accepting of getting it done, so it
Correct.
was fine.
Thank you.
It's all above board.
Just making sure.
All right,
I think we're moving on from school board.
from school board comments? All right, public minutes from March 7th.
I'm going to abstain from this, but I got to use the restroom.
I make a motion to approve the minutes for March 7th.
Great.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All right, all in favor? I'll do a roll call vote. Heidi,
Aye.
Tara,
Aye.
Liz,
Aye.
and I'm an I, and Andrew abstained.
Abstained.
So that is 401.
Is it okay if I leave?
What?
Is it okay if I leave?
You may. You can do the minutes later, Michelle, it's fine.
LMS Principals report we did earlier. Did we do your
Hi.
report? Do you have,
Well, we did a
We did a
big
lot of
chunk
it.
of the
Yeah.
LMS project. So we do have kickoff meeting for phase 2 tomorrow. I'll just reiterate that. In other project updates, Mike, myself,
Would you
and
mind taking the manifest?
I'll take it. Yeah, I got it, Michelle. Mike, myself, Kyle Barker, and an appraiser walked property yesterday for an evaluation. I'm
Been
not
anonymous.
specifying property at this time. That went very well, but we are starting to move in that process. I've also included, and there's links to it, the FY21 audit report, which is now out. It's a little later than usual due to I did have a leave in January, therefore it took a little more time.
have a good
See
night,
you,
Michelle.
Michelle. It took a little longer to get the information to the auditors in order to finalize the report. So we now have it. I've also attached the governance letter, which is from the auditors, which will note any findings in there. I am aware of those findings. A couple of them note repeat, but they have to do with, timeliness of deposits and
Yeah, I read
order
through
of
that
process
today.
and stuff like that. It's stuff that will all be addressed during this year. Also, I'm hoping she left the folder. We have the MS
Grab it.
22 to be signed. I don't think it's with that. Mike may have it in his folders. We do need a signed copy to be submitted to the state. That's the vote of the approved appropriations due to the vote. I also provided year-to-date financial statements in terms of expended and encumbered between 95 and 96%, are right in line with where we've been in the past couple of years. I've already noted in the financial statements the committed fund balance for Article 7, which is 125,000. So that's in there. I included for food service financials. There's a significant improvement on that side. There's $69,000 in fund balance at this time.
Oh, thank you, Heidi.
Mostly due to we've had the increase in participation in both the breakfast and the lunch program at both schools due to the free meals that are served. It's just generating a lot of that federal revenue that's coming in, and it's reimbursed as all free meals. June 30th of 22 will be the last. We're going back to paid meals next year. So hopefully this will leave us with a comfortable fund balance in order to maintain it as a self-sustaining program going forward. And Lauren still works to keep those costs down. And of course, their fixed cost is high with full-time staff and benefits. So we hope to keep them on that a good track going into next year. Also, I did email to the board, Lauren's explanation of a comparison of February last year to this year to show how much of a significant increase in participation we're seeing. So those are available here. That is what I have right now. I will note that based on some feedback, I do a monthly report where I bring the financials. I'm also going to do a biweekly report where I give project updates because there's so many project meetings that happen. There's so many plates spinning. Just want to kind of give a running summary every couple weeks of where we are, what direction things are going. So I'll start providing those at the April 6th meeting for the board to review as well. And unless anyone has any questions for me.
Any questions for Corey?
I think just putting my future budget committee hat on.
Future
from this perspective, right? I think one of the things that they're going to ask for that we need to be very diligent in providing are the budget expense reports. So if we just set up a frequency to do that, like clockwork.
So how much detail in it? Was it by function?
It's like the 50 or 60 page report that has the expenses as of that point in time.
Okay, that's easy enough to provide.
Yeah, it should be. I believe it's just an auto report. You hit the button and shoot it across.
So there's two ways I can do it. I can do it in the e-finance software, which takes into account budget transfers and actually where they are. The budget reports that we give the budget committee comes out of Cognos reporting software, which is an IBM product. And that does not take into account amounts that have been transferred across.
I think they probably
that's why we get some confusion.
Yeah.
So we can determine which is better, and I can link them in, with my monthly financial report so that it's automatically there and they can
I get copied on whatever reports you send to the budget committee?
Yes, absolutely.
Sure.
Do you want to take lead on budget committee?
No.
You should.
Okay, new business. We have policy IKF, high school graduation requirements.
So a couple of things I'm bringing forward IKF. Part of it is in the spirit of the conversation tonight relative to the graduation. I also feel that there were some things that had occurred just before I came that the policy didn't speak to, right? So there were some students who, my understanding was, had not met the final graduation requirements, but then came forward to the board to appeal to be able to participate anyway. I want to walk with the kids that I know. And so it put the board in a position of hearing these appeals relative to it. And I thought a policy that sort of captured the stance on it so that, it doesn't mean somebody's not appealing it, but at least they're being handed like, look, the board's already voted on this. This is their policy. And so it just makes it crystal clear. So let me walk you through. It's, it's a yellow lined edition one. So the first section is, and remember, this is I'm sorry, Andrew, I should orient you. This is a first read. We don't even have to accept it as a first read. It's just a way to get the conversation going relative to the policy. So the first one is about the academic piece, that really it's a privilege and that they have to have earned the diploma, right? They're not marching with a blank diploma to someday maybe get it later. It's by that date. And trust me, the high school goes to great lengths to get everybody there. Some students get there with flying colors. Some get there dragged through the knothole. No matter how you slice it, the ceremony is for people getting the diploma because it's a conferral ceremony. Yeah. The second section talks about the flexibility that's necessary if somebody is coming in from another school. I'm always sensitive to a student who moves here now, and how do you they were totally on track for a 20 credit diploma in the other school, and now we have a 24 credit diploma, and that just basically says, look, there's the acknowledgement that we have to be able to honor that student's pathway from where they are. The next section is on the graduation ceremony itself. I wrote a paragraph, I guess it is, that the principal is responsible for planning that ceremony, because that's where I believe the ultimate planning aspect belongs. So I put into writing that it's the principal's responsibility. I put that the principal should consult with the graduation committee to ensure traditions are upheld and updated as new situations arise. We have, there's a whole question about, in the past, the males would wear one color gown and the females would wear another color gown. There has never been a policy on students selecting the gown that they choose to wear, right? So those kinds of traditions nobody thought about that 20 years ago when Campbell was opened. And so
We've addressed that before.
And so now we're putting in writing that the committee will be the ones to revisit those changing situations as they come up.
And who is the graduation committee, if I may?
It was in that memo from Bill. So
okay.
I know you couldn't get it. I apologize. So it really is anchored by Sean McDonough and Denise Freeman.
Emailed to us after.
Yes,
Yeah.
I will get it to you. The next thing is passage of the civics exam. This is a new expectation from the state, so we wanted to put it in there. At the beginning, you have the credit requirement piece. That's really all I ever spoke to, but now we do have to have students show that they have passed the civics exam, so we've aligned that with the new law. Federal student aid application. So there's another new piece coming relative to students and the student aid application.
That's surprising me. Is that that's according to an RSA or a bill that's been passed?
My understanding is that's a new requirement.
I have feelings about that,
but if it's in the law,
hear ya.
it's one of those perfunctory things, right? That the what else do we have? So that's all about that form. That we will award a high school diploma to any student who's unable to meet the requirement above, provided they do the following. So actually, that's all tied back to that federal form.
the FAFSA.
We have the students with disability section that's not changing. And then the last two sections I've added in. One is behavior, because first of all, our kids are awesome. We tend not to have a lot of difficulties or problems. But I will tell you, there are high schools where there is misbehavior on a senior trip. Those students are suspended as a result of misbehavior. We're talking, drinking or some other serious misbehavior. A fight could break out on a trip for all we know. You never know how things go. There's no clause in there that says they can be suspended through the graduation ceremony. This basically says, look, if you get yourself a 10-day suspension for substance abuse, then if one of those days is graduation, you lost it. And it puts it in the policy that that's the consequence of taking that kind of action. You don't get to break the rule, get a 10-day suspension, and then come and participate on Friday night, right? So this is putting into writing that would be something that would be a consequence of a suspension. The last thing is alternative graduation ceremony. I'm a huge believer. I don't care when the kid gets there. It should be marked as a key event. I have my cap and gown pressed and ready to go at any minute. And we can literally do a graduation ceremony wherever it's necessary to honor that kid when they get it. So my first year, one of the students who appealed to the board and wasn't able to march because they weren't getting the diploma, got it done in July. And we had the family there and we didn't just mail a diploma to the kiddo. We honored the fact that they had achieved that at that point in time. So I think
That'd
putting,
be true if somebody finished early for some reason.
yeah, it can be. They often, if they finish early, sometimes they'll say they want the ceremony and they
Mhm.
just do want to be done, but they often, they want to stop taking classes, which is legit, and wait for, they want to march with their class. So, but
Yeah.
but if somebody
Yeah.
didn't do that, we would absolutely
Yeah.
That
have the
opens
alternative
door to
ceremony. And this just puts into policy that that's an expectation that we would, mark that occasion when it occurs. So I'll pause and see what questions or comments you might have on this.
So that's not just for seniors that, well, I guess like what if somebody graduated a year, or if they didn't graduate, and if they got their diploma like a year and a half later, that would still be the case? Or is it really just for,
It's the same thing.
right, how far out would you do that?
Well,
They get a Campbell diploma.
Yeah.
24
Should have
credits a
some.
year and a half early. Wow. But we would honor that.
We would,
They
yeah.
may march.
I don't know if that,
So I guess I'm trying to think my way through that question because
I don't
they
know
sort
if
of
it ever
become-
happens.
they become seniors early, right?
Yeah.
Because they achieve the
Graduate a
credit
year.
status of being a senior early, and then they may march with the class that's next receiving
Graduating.
diplomas. So, but
Yeah.
it's a good question.
I would, if you ever have to perform another one, I know I've been to one or two, I would like to be invited, just like I'd like to be invited to any alternative ed graduation through Bill's program or anything like that. I think it's important for us to show we care about every student.
It's a good point, Liz.
If you could put me down on the invite list whenever it happens.
It's a good note for Bill.
Absolutely, we will do
Yeah.
that.
Thank you.
Just invite the full board. Yeah. All right. I'll make a motion to approve policy IKF, high school graduation requirements as written, or for a first reading.
Second.
Further discussion?
I just had a question about so the FAFSA, that is now, why is that a requirement? Is that a state law as well?
Yeah, that's what I was asking Mike about. I think so. So if you aren't acquainted with the FAFSA,
Yeah.
lucky you.
Yeah.
Not
yet.
It's basically the application, the national application for financial aid for college or secondary education.
Yeah.
So I find it very interesting that the state would require
I know.
would require students to fill out the FAFSA and apply for financial student aid.
It's insane.
Thank
Is
you,
it
Liz.
not due
I was
until
trying to be
March,
cordial.
what, 2nd, March 1st?
What happens if we don't?
Or number two, file a waiver on a form created
Right.
by the Board of Ed. So they,
Right.
Yeah.
So we can
what
do
we
that
have to
too.
do is do the checklist to say,
Has to be
this child
one
filled
or
out the
the other.
FAFSA, this
Mhm.
child did the waiver and said, I'm not going to fill out
Right.
the FAFSA.
Right.
And you can see down
Mhm.
below RSA 193:26A, graduation requirements, free application for federal student aid. So
But
I
it's
think
more than a checklist. It's that checklist, but it's also ensuring that they did it, right?
You're right. Well, the
I
guidance
do not
office,
Like
know
the guidance
overseeing,
office,
like I read this as as
Right.
confirming that they've actually done
yeah,
it.
guidance already knows when they
Oh, they do.
apply. Yeah, when you submit your
Okay.
FAFSA, guidance gets an alert. So they
I
already keep
was
track.
told
Oh.
that my son couldn't get financial aid because he wasn't registered to for the selective service, which I thought was interesting. That's a tie to the FAFSA too, which I think is
Mhm.
crazy.
Yep.
He's registered
Contact
now.
your state representatives if you
Wow.
have feelings about that one.
Yeah.
I guess I have questions about the behavior paragraph. Is that something that's already in effect right now and just hasn't been written? Is that been policy in the past?
so. I think it's not explicit. This is just explicitly stating
Mhm.
that it includes graduation. I think there's an assumption that you suspended me from school, but I'm graduating, I'm getting a diploma. And really it's for the board, I think, to decide, is that a right or is that a privilege?
Right.
And to me, the right is to the diploma. You can't withhold not the credits, you're going to get the diploma, but participating in the ceremony. I've seen in other schools where let's face it, an event occurs on a senior trip. It tends to be known by everybody on the senior trip. And then it's why did the people who ruined the trip, why would they be allowed to participate also? So it's just something that,
So I see both sides of it. Again, I'm going to age myself a little bit, and having grown up in the year of Beverly Hills 90210 and the Donna Martin Graduates episode,
I don't
Seen
know
it.
it.
where Donna makes a mistake and drinks and is caught and then isn't allowed to participate in graduation, and she goes to the school board and they do a whole protest. And anyway, my point is, having seen this episode, but also just actual real life, is there this I see may not participate, I don't see shall not participate. So is that a choice of a may and not a shall, intentional? And is there discretion in this? Because if I guess I see someone getting a 10-day suspension, that obviously has to be a very, very serious situation. So I understand that, but if it's a less than a 10-day, but is going to impact graduation, somehow they get suspended the day before and they get a 2-day suspension or something. I have concerns about a lesser offense denying somebody something that they earned over the course of earned or had a privilege. I don't know.
So to me, that's the question.
Mhm.
The earned is the diploma, the privilege is participating. But I will tell you as principal, I had policy like this and I use it as a tool. I met with the seniors before senior weeks, or as Brian used to call it, senior month kicked off.
Yeah.
And I would just remind everybody, I want you all there. You know what else? I want you all live at that event, because there's way too many stories of, the drinking driving incident, and all of a sudden you have an empty chair sitting there.
Right.
So I use it as my rallying cry of let's stick together. Let's get to the finish line as a group. I don't want to have somebody who makes a bad mistake, and a mistake, and then a bad choice, and then ends up not able to participate. So the question is, if all of a sudden it's a gotcha policy, that's not right.
Mhm.
If it becomes part of a strategic way of just keeping everybody together and safe,
Yeah.
I think it's okay, personally.
I think we have a bigger problem with kids not passing algebra 2 and geometry or whatever it was than behavior, because that's always, I think it was a few years ago, we had 2 kids that were missing requirements to graduate, and it was a tough call. It was awful.
I wonder too, is this consistent? I know that there have been changes to like the discipline or consequence matrix and the suspension policy at the state level. Is this all compliant with that and kosher? And it does say there's a sentence that says it's consistent with state law.
Which sentence? I'm sorry.
The last sentence in the paragraph under behavior. But I know that all of those rules have recently changed. So we had to upgrade our handbooks to have the progressive discipline matrices published in them. And
I still think that a suspension less than 10 days is not appealable under the state law. But let me just go back and double check that,
just wanna
because
make sure
that
it's
rewrite
consistent.
on it,
Yeah.
I'm going to double check that for you.
Just to play devil's advocate, if I may, I've just gone to 2 other districts to see what else is out there. Hollis didn't have one, interestingly. I don't know
Yeah,
why.
this is the first time we've entertained having a graduation.
So some districts do, some don't, whatever. Okay, got it. Londonderry does, but it's not nearly this prescriptive. I'm not saying what's right or wrong. I'm just, again, playing devil's advocate. Why do we need to be this prescriptive?
You don't need to be. Take the scenario where the students didn't have the credits last time, and the school rule is they can't participate, but they appeal it. Goes to the superintendent. I side with the school, which is what I've done. They have the right to appeal it to the board. And so, it just gives more, if the board's already taken a stance via policy, it just sort of backs up like, hey, you knew this was something that was clear. So it is kind of prescriptive.
Part of it too is the addition of the additional language because of the bills that have passed at the state. So those are now.
I mean, the
included.
first part of this, the credits and all that, that's actually in the handbook.
Right.
The handbook.
I don't necessarily
Yeah.
mind it. I'm just trying to understand what other districts do here too.
Yeah.
And it really does vary. I mean, it's, you have to remember there's model policy, which is sort of what the school board association thinks you ought to have. And in many cases, it's statutory. You need to have. So like the statutory references, that new section that we're adding in is because of the law. Same thing for the civics exam. That was a law. However, things like the graduation ceremony, I am suggesting to you that you trust your high school administrators and that you trust your graduation committee to make those decisions. That's my advice. And I think putting it in the policy is the right thing to do.
Saves the board from these discussions in the future too. And hopefully, I mean, I think the board needs to send a strong recommendation to the high school that that committee needs to involve students from day one,
Love that idea.
right?
And I think you're spot on, right? I can't answer to why we're where we
Right.
are.
Right.
I can only say, yeah, if you know who the class officers are.
Right. Mhm.
So
Right.
get them involved early on,
Right.
or don't meet early on and say
Right.
our first meeting is here, whichever.
Right.
But I think you're spot on right
Yeah.
about that.
I don't like that we've made this decision, but we haven't had any input yet. I think that it's a process. It seems to be a process every year, lately anyway.
We're assuming everything's going to be the same.
Right.
Every year.
Right.
I don't like that. Like I think students,
Mhm.
I mean, every new year we get a new student council, have them look at it. What do they want changed? I mean, I think tradition is good in some respects, but I believe change is also good.
Mhm.
So
I'm okay with that. I mean, I do definitely feel like it's a high school decision, as I said before, but I think students need to be more involved in the planning earlier on, like I said. So,
Be good for the vote?
yeah. So any other questions or comments? Or
No
amendments?
question. I'm not sure I'm comfortable with it, honestly.
Can we
And so-
table it? Can we table it for another
Of course you
day?
can.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
You could vote on first read, bring it back,
I think I'd like to ask some more questions if I can.
table it,
then
and we'll bring it back for another
do a little
first
more
read.
research?
No
Okay.
problem.
Sounds good.
I'm not ready yet.
One of
Sorry.
the policies that the budget, or one of the practices that the budget committee had, is you never vote on something you receive that day, right? I don't know if there's time or if that makes sense entirely for the school, but it made a lot of sense for the budget committee.
It does. And I understand that for the budget committee, but where we're already talking about going 3 meetings a month.
I know.
Well, and again, I appreciate that we get the agenda on Friday. I did look at the
Mhm.
policy. I did look
Yeah.
at the yellow and the revisions. I just had questions and I'm not.
In fairness, Andrew did not get it on Friday.
Right.
Because
Okay.
he didn't have access to everything. He got it yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one
Yeah.
key
Sure.
point. The other point is that's why we do 2 reads. So nothing's enacted until it's been read twice. So it's always out in the ether for the public to comment
Mm-hmm.
on and so forth. And if this becomes a 3rd read, okay.
We can read it as many times as we want.
How many times
Okay.
did we go
When
over
you're ready,
the,
we'll vote.
the classroom size
Oh,
policy? I think that was
that's-
on for like
my
6
God.
meetings.
I don't think that debate's done yet.
I'm so convinced it ended up right where it started.
Yeah, I think it
Yeah.
did too. Just different
Right.
words.
All right, well then, I'll remove motion.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you. And we'll table that for next time.
And I will clarify the points that you've asked me to do, and we'll bring all that back
Mm-hmm.
next time. So
All right, great. Our favorite old business, hopefully very, very old business soon. The current situation on coronavirus.
well, I think Jen stole my thunder, but let me just toss
Did a
it
lot
out
of
there.
that tonight.
So a reminder that this is the general summary. So in Hillsborough County, we were down to 204.9 cases over the last 14 days. This was as of last Thursday. We'll update it
That's
tomorrow.
still
But
substantial, huh?
it is still a substantial spread. I don't know if at some point the state is going to revise their definitions, but if you go back, even when we were down to 178.5 on September 30th, it was still substantial. So I don't know what the threshold is. I've lost track of it, but it's been substantial all year and it still is. And 2.6% test positivity. In Litchfield, there were 14 new cases reported over the last 14 cases over the last 14 days, still substantial. And our number for comparability is 161. So we are under the county average at that point. And you'll notice that in our schools, we had low impacts and we continued with the responsibility trend. Looking at GMS, you can see that there were no staff positives so far in the month of March. There have been a couple of student positives that have popped up. I'd have to dig at those numbers. I don't know how we go 0, 2, 3, 0. But,
Yeah.
I'll have to ask Dan about that when we meet tomorrow. And his attendance rate has gone up a little bit, but
Is that what bumped it into medium?
It sounds like stomach bug.
yeah, and he made a note, stomach bug is accounting. So the stomach bug is going around.
That is true.
Yep.
But so he's in medium on the over 7%, but it's not COVID related because you didn't see the COVID numbers. Of course, stomach bug is symptomatic of COVID or vice versa, so it's hard to differentiate, but we're testing kids, so we know. Looking at LMS, again, all zeros, no student cases and no staff cases. That's why Jen was sort of celebrating. I am going to happily drag her low down and her responsibility down. So middle school is doing well. And at CHS, come on, Bill. Looks like Bill's behind on his numbers this week, so I'll get those updated tomorrow. But you can see he's, been in good shape. So I'll find out where this week's numbers are. Any questions for me on COVID? These reports are getting shorter. I like it.
I'm coming in at the right time. Thank God.
All right.
I'm sorry. I'm really tired. Okay, thank you for that. Do you have any other agenda items for non-public this evening? For public this evening?
One other thing I just want to announce, I forgot to do this under my comments. So let me talk to everybody about the high school principal search so that you get a verbal update. We advertised this per the timeline that we had before February vacation in Massachusetts. So we were early on getting this announced. We had a closing date of March 9th. March 9th comes, we have 12 applicants, which I was very impressed by. I've heard from other school districts that have had, 3, 4 applicants total. We had a dozen people who applied. The executive search committee, which is me, Barbara, Holly, and Mary Woodman, and also Mike Perez and Sean McDonough. We sat down and we went through all of those applications, looked at qualifications and matched everything up. And from that, we selected 6 people to screen and brought those folks in on Monday. We screened the applicants and we have selected, at this point, we have selected 2 people to go forward. I am playing phone tag to see if 2 people want to go forward. So I can't announce yet exactly where we're going to be. But the next round is a completely open and transparent process. It's going to take place on Monday evening. Board members are invited to participate in that. There will be a community room. So we're going to get an email out to parents and other community members who would like to come and meet the candidates. And the survey that's going to go out is just a basic Google survey. It says, would you like to participate? Sign up. We do want to know who's coming so we can plan pizza for the evening so we can have a good count. And then we want them to attend the entire session. So it is a commitment of a couple hours, but it doesn't make sense to come and meet one candidate and not the other, to provide feedback on one when you can't do a comparison. And we asked them if they have questions they would like to ask to get those in. Leading the community session are Jimmy Dinwiddie and Margaret Norton. And so they are the facilitators of that. They'll take all these questions and they'll facilitate that session. So the community will get an opportunity to weigh in on the candidates. Simultaneously, the same thing will be happening with the faculty. So every person who works at Campbell High School, every teacher, every paraprofessional, whoever, you're invited to come, meet the candidates, offer feedback on them, let us know what strengths you see and what weaknesses or questions or concerns you have on the candidates. And that is being led by Noah Benoit and Julie Green. And Julie did it at the middle school, so she's familiar with the experience, and she's been asked to do it again.
She participated at GMS too.
Julie did?
She wasn't a facilitator.
Oh,
though.
she wasn't?
She
Okay.
attended.
She
but
was there, yeah.
And then finally, the third group that they will meet with is the administrative team. So I've asked every principal, assistant principal, director, anybody on the administrative team for the district. They will have an opportunity to meet and ask questions. Devin Bandersky and Chris Jamrog, our IT director, special ed director, they will be the facilitators for that, and they'll be getting the feedback. And then they'll give that feedback to the executive search committee. And then, consistent with all nominations, I will bring one name forward to the board with a recommendation that we nominate them. So that's why board members, if you're able to attend on that night, remember, you get the ultimate vote, right? To accept my nomination or not to accept my nomination. So what I want you to do is to be comfortable knowing who the candidates are, understanding how they've interacted. You should feel free to move among the groups that night. So if you want to sit in with, parents, it might make sense to pick a group to stick with, I guess, because a candidate may interact differently with administrators and with parents. But whichever group you
I think
think.
that's what we've usually done. We've kind of divvied up.
That's what we did last time.
This is Monday, the 21st.
Monday the 21st.
Yeah, what's that?
I'll get the exact times once I confirm with the candidates. I'm envisioning 4 to 7.
Yeah, I think that's what
Four-
you have.
4:30 to
4:30. Yeah.
4:30 is when the whole thing starts.
Okay.
I mean, at least what I have. The 3 sessions.
I was going to say, that's one of the questions. And if you go ahead and.
Yeah. And so sit in, get to know them so that you understand what's happened. We've done this process twice. In both cases, at the end of the night, a light was shining as one candidate as
Where is it now?
the right fit for Litchfield, right?
Yep.
And that's what this comes down to. A dozen people want to work here, but we got to find the right fit. So it's got to be a two-way street. That's why, I may call somebody and say, hey, we've selected you. And they may say, after doing a little more research, I've decided I don't want to move forward, which is legit. They should decide that now, not next Monday, right? So we want to make sure that we are doing the right opportunity for people to feel out who we are and for us an opportunity to feel out who they are.
Sorry, can I?
And it will be brought forth on the 23rd.
Yep. So on the 23rd,
Okay, bless you.
the board has a non-public meeting here.
Okay.
Are we here? I don't know where we are. Let me figure out where we are.
We got the invitation today.
But there's a student matter pending. There is this
Yeah.
nomination pending, and I'm also going fast and furious with hires at in particular at the middle school. And I want to bring those to you as we get them, because I think we owe it to a teacher who wants to join us to offer them a contract and have them know that they've been nominated, because they can stop their search. I don't want somebody out there saying, oh, I have to wait till April 6th, which is the next board meeting. Oh, there's another application. What if I don't get that? I'll apply over here, right? I want to be deliberate. If we want somebody, let's get them on board.
Is that aligned with the contracts for retained teachers?
Yes. Those contracts have to go out by law by April 15th.
Okay.
And I think we
I just
exceed
want to
that
make sure
deadline.
that, we know where we're hiring before we hire.
These are
Sense? Retirements?
these are unquestionable need to hire.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect.
So
So yeah, part of my question was what's different between Wednesday and Monday, but Monday's more of a meet and greet, get to know type of thing. And are these different times with each of the principals, or is it together?
the candidates.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of awkward,
They
right?
go
I'm up
through
against
the
you.
yeah, no.
No,
They-
they-
they
go through the room.
So it's basically, think of a
You
three-part
see it like a
round.
boxing match.
A
That's
three-part
It's not
round
like-
robin. If you sit in with the community group,
Yeah.
you're going to meet candidate 1, assuming we'll have candidate 1, candidate 2, and a pizza break.
All right.
So those are your 3
You're
options.
bribing me. All right. I like
I
that.
vote for the pizza.
I stayed in the same place because I wanted to see the
Yeah.
teachers and them answer the same questions from the teachers and see how they answer differently instead of walking around. That's what I wanted to hear.
Sounds good. All right.
So community, an email is going to come out from me probably in the morning as soon as I've confirmed. When the email comes out, I'm going to give a quick synopsis of the 2 candidates so that people know. That's the other thing, is I want permission that the minute we publicly announce it, their community knows it, right? So I just want to make sure that everybody knows that's the stage that we're at. And they are asked that night to bring a one-page introduction of themselves. So we don't hand out their transcripts. Nobody needs to know who got a D in philosophy. It's like, but their opportunity to sort of summarize. It's not necessarily their resume, but it's their marketing tool in terms of, this is why I think I'm the right fit for Campbell.
I just want to encourage parents that may not necessarily have CHS students yet, but may have LMS or GMS students. You are, in theory, eventually going to have CHS students, and hopefully this principal will be there when your student's there. So I hope that they come and participate and give feedback. And, so it's not just, I don't want the community to feel it's just CHS parents that we want there. I think we want everybody there.
Would you like me to send it to all parents? I can, it's like a snow day, and I can just do
I do. I think I can tell you, having participated in both processes, we had a lot more people at the GMS forum than we had at the LMS forum. And I don't know whether that was time of year. I don't know whether that was night of the week. I can't say that, but I would love to have some of that GMS participation make it up to CHS
too.
And LMS, right?
Yep. I'll send it out to everybody. I will say the LMS process, it was sort of the victim of daylight savings, because it was a beautiful August night. And it was still light out till 8 o'clock.
Yeah, it was hot as heck. We had to move to the air-conditioned computer room that night. I remember that.
And the other piece was, remember, Tom's resignation was a surprise in August, and so we were going 100 miles an hour on that one. So
again, this is an opportunity for the community to weigh in.
I agree. Open it up.
I hope people come. I hope people come and ask questions.
I was going to send it to just 8th grade up, but I'll send it to everybody. Not a problem.
There we go. All right.
How's the pizza budget? We good on that?
That's me.
With that, I think we're ready to. Any questions on the manifest?
Not yet, but Andrew needs
This is
to
new
know
to
what
me,
that
so
is.
we'll go through that.
Okay.
It looks
We
very
can-
meaty.
Yeah.
Skip over that.
It's
and
good
give you-
times.
Yeah.
If there's,
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, Mike. Would you check the Google Meet to see if there's any
Sorry,
additional
I will
input?
double check the meet
There's no
again.
one left in the audience here. Oscar, do you have anything to add? Okay, just checking. Thank you. And once we see if anyone is in the Google Meet for public input
It's the Mike
Okay, I
Jody
really
show.
thought Brian was going to be
with the
here.
recorder, right?
Right?
Yeah,
He had
That's
a homework
disappointing.
assignment.
it is late.
What's up with that?
So with that, we'll move into
Turns into a
non-public
pumpkin.
session according to RSA 91-A:311 A through C. The dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee, or the disciplining of such employee, or the investigation of any charges against him, unless the employee affected, 1, has the right to a meeting, and 2, requests that the meeting be open, in which case the request shall be granted. B, the hiring of any person as a public employee. C, matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the body or agency itself, unless such person requests an open meeting. I'll do a roll call vote. Heidi?
Aye.
Tara?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
Liz?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. So thank you all for watching from home. And our next meeting will be on, well, it will be the principal search. We'll be at the principal search evenings on the 21st. And our next meeting after that, our regularly scheduled meeting is April 6th. Thank you.